My stomach is a bottomless pit. It's impossible to fill, and my parents knew it. They opened a crematorium specifically for me to manage because, in this business, there is one golden rule. The unwritten one. We love demonic beasts more than anything. The ones delivered to us always have a few scraps left behind. Decades ago, the entire world was suddenly invaded, overrun by countless demonic beasts. Humanity paid a bloody price to learn how to force themselves to grow stronger using the blood essence of these monsters, and by consuming demon-devouring pills. But as for the remaining carcasses of those demonic beasts, it didn't matter if they were eaten, whether raw or cooked. The people who tried to consume them felt a rot inside, and without exception, they all met a gruesome end. With thousands of beasts killed every year, something had to be done. If the corpses aren't disposed of in time, they become a source of plague. That is how the demonic beast crematorium was born. But as I grew older, the residual blood essence in these beasts began to fade. It was becoming harder and harder for me to survive. I couldn't take the hunger anymore, so I asked my father while hauling the carcasses, "Dad, I'm so hungry. I really want to take a bite of this demonic beast meat." He stopped dead when he heard my words. "Boy," he growled, "how many times do I have to tell you? These beasts are not edible. Think about it again, and I'll break your legs." I looked at the meat with pure regret. It looked so good. I knew it would finally satisfy me, but I wasn't allowed to touch it. Hearing me mumble, John Valley knew I was relapsing into my obsession. He decided he had to teach me a lesson right then and there. He pointed at the massive letters painted on the wall and shouted, "Read it out loud. Demonic beasts are not food. They turn your eyes red and rot your soul." I looked in the direction my father was pointing and just yawned. "What's written on the wall?" I asked him back with total sincerity. My father's rage flared up instantly, but then he looked at my shadow and felt a wave of sadness. Seeing my innocent eyes, the fire in his heart died out. "Son, I've never been able to give you a full meal since you were little. It's hard for you, I know, but this meat is poison. Go handle the incinerator while I check on dinner." With that, Gian Valley's figure gradually faded into the distance. I stared at the iron-tail eagle carcass in front of me and swallowed hard. "The skin on this thing must be 3 layers thick, right?" I muttered as I dragged it toward the incinerator. I hauled the iron-tail eagle across the floor, but then, something happened. A sudden burst of heat flared up inside my pocket. The sensation was so intense it made me freeze mid-motion. In an instant, a book flew out and soared toward the sky. Wait, isn't this that illustrated book I took from my friend? I looked back at the demonic beast, but before I could even react, a flash of golden light blinded me, and the entire book vanished directly into my mind. I shook my head violently, trying to clear the fog. Suddenly, massive golden letters began to materialize before my eyes. Good grief, what the hell is this? Are the heavens finally tired of watching me starve? I just didn't know if I could actually trust what I was seeing. After thinking it over for a second, I made up my mind. Wealth is in the heavens, and life and death are predestined. I can die in battle, but I won't die of hunger. Just as I was about to dig in, my parents came running toward me in a panic. "We have to leave for a while," they shouted. "Your second uncle is deathly ill in the next town over." I was literally just wondering how to find an excuse to eat this meat, so I couldn't help but blurt out, "What a great day." The air froze instantly as my mother glared at me and hissed, "What did you just say, son?" Realizing I'd messed up, I scrambled to fix it. "I mean, how could he die so soon? 80 is the perfect age for adventure. Why go so young?" My mom gave me a cold look and told me to stay home for the next few days. She had already called the school to get me permission to miss class while they were gone. I was secretly ecstatic hearing this, since I could barely afford to eat, let alone focus on school. Besides, my future was already set as the director of a cremation factory. The moment I started that path, I lost any real chance of continuing my studies. Thinking about this, I suppressed the joy in my heart and kept a straight face. I simply nodded and said, "All right, Mom, have a safe trip." My dad sighed, looking at me like I'd finally grown up, and told me he left money in the closet. He told me if the hunger got too bad, I should go buy a bottle of demonic beast essence. I told him not to worry and that I had everything under control. An hour after my parents left, I got ready to start cooking the iron-tail eagle meat. I headed to the Chinese medicine shop, where old John started barking about his products being real. He laughed and scolded me, having no idea what kind of opportunity he was missing out on. He claimed his fake medicines were selling well regardless of what I thought. After some casual back-and-forth nonsense, I handed him my shopping list. Old John glanced at the paper and shrugged, saying they were all just common items. He told me to just grab the worthless stuff myself, so I gathered the herbs I needed. I paid him and started heading back home with my supplies. But on the way back, a familiar figure suddenly made me jump. "Little Bottle, get over here." Little Bottle was the pathetic nickname I had back at school. Ever since I was a kid, I barely survived by drinking that cheap stuff. Demonic beast essence was the only thing keeping me going. But essence was expensive and my family was broke back in my school days. I used to lick the leftovers from the blood essence vials the school gave the combat department. Most students didn't care about the drops at the bottom, but they used it to mock me relentlessly. Back to the present, I turned around and put on a fake smile for the director. "Isn't this my darling?" "Sir, what brings you to this part of town?" "Don't give me that crap. I came here specifically to find you. From now on, kid, stop using Lon Lon just to get a free meal." He looked at me like I was a stain on the reputation of the entire cultivation world. For the next 5 minutes, the director's mouth didn't stop spewing a torrent of insults. The Lanlan he mentioned was Dong Fanlan, a girl who transferred to my school after her father died in battle. Everyone knew Dong Fanlan was the top talent of our year. We were childhood friends, but things changed after we started high school. My appetite grew out of control while I stayed at the bottom of the ranks. Meanwhile, Dong Fanlan became a star with a line of suitors out the door. So I made a choice. A decision that went against everything I had ever wanted. I decided to distance myself from Dong Fanlan. No matter who tried to force me away, I would start with at least 5 vials of salt essence and demonic beast blood. Over time, I've collected hundreds of these blood essence vials. The director's daily lecture was finally coming to an end. He gave me that same look and added, "By the way, don't provoke Lamuchi from our school. He has a lot of influence, so watch your back." As he spoke, he handed me more vials of blood essence, muttering, "I don't know how your stomach handles it. Even my own grandson doesn't eat this much, but you just devour everything put in front of you." The director finished his rant and walked away without looking back, so I grabbed the tail eagle and ran to the incineration room. I chopped the meat into small pieces and threw them into an iron pot to simmer for half an hour. Soon, the air was thick with a rich, savory aroma. It was tempting, and as time passed, my resistance to this delicacy crumbled. Finally, I couldn't hold back and grabbed a piece of dried mushroom from the pot. The moment it hit my tongue, the words explosively delicious echoed through my mind. But as I swallowed that shiitake mushroom, I suddenly felt a sensation similar to drinking pure beast blood. The feeling wasn't incredibly strong, but I could still feel it, with absolute clarity. That was the moment I decided to begin. I ate until I was stuffed, not caring if I lived or died. If I was going to go, I'd go as a ghost with a full stomach. Besides, without me weighing them down, my parents could finally start over. With that thought, I began to eat even more wildly, even gnawing on the bones for half an hour. For the first time in my life, I knew what it felt like to be satisfied. But just as I was savoring that fullness, a sudden discomfort hit my gut. Every cell in my body became unnaturally active before I could even process why. A surge of raw energy began coursing through my limbs and my very bones. Could this be it? The energy of cultivation? Damn it, I used to be so hungry that my stomach touched my spine. I couldn't muster a single spark of energy to become a cultivator back then. Now that I'm full, I'm suddenly awakening? Is it because this body was never satisfied? My heart soared with joy, but the evolution wasn't over yet. Suddenly, a blinding golden light flashed before my eyes. A complex magical diagram etched itself into my mind. I stared in total disbelief, my mind racing through the rumors. They said you only get a skill by swallowing a demon pill, so how did I get one from a corpse? There was no time to overthink it, so I quickly mobilized the energy in my body. I guided the flow through my limbs using the school's cultivation method for 30 minutes. I opened my eyes, feeling incredible, and whispered, "Finally, the first heaven of cultivation." 2 o'clock sharp, the transport vehicle carrying the demon beast carcasses arrived right on time. I rushed to the gate the moment I heard the call for me to receive the delivery. "Uncle Nu, my parents aren't home," I said. "They're out preparing for another banquet." "Is that so? Then I'll just take this carcass to another crematorium for processing." "Wait, Uncle Nu, don't. I've trained with my father for years, and I know the furnace inside out. I can handle this. Just help me get the beast inside." "Are you sure? This is an 8th heaven lunar howling dog killed just last night." "I'm positive, Uncle. You can count on me." "All right then, kid, just be careful." Uncle Nu signaled the young man behind him to start unloading the cargo. Once he saw no one was watching, he leaned in and whispered a tip to me. He told me these beasts were killed in a hurry, so their precious lifeblood wasn't fully drained. "I get it, Uncle. I know the drill." He smiled and gave me a final warning. "The city isn't safe lately. Beasts are sneaking in, so stay inside at night." "I will. Thanks for the heads up. And one more thing. Inspectors are coming in 3 days. Don't get lazy. 3 days is the limit before the contamination spreads. Don't worry. I guarantee it'll be finished by then." As soon as they left, I looked at that lunar dog and felt my mouth start to water. The small golden book in my mind suddenly flipped to a brand new page. 8th heaven lunar dog, tough meat, heavy bone, perfect for restoring physical strength. The flavor is average, honey with aged broth and a bit of chili for the base. Slice it thin and cook it in a pot. It tastes even better with honey sauce. The honey sauce formula helps slightly increase physical power and strength. It boosts kidney function and protection, though the book notes, dogs shouldn't be eaten. I strategically chose to ignore that little comment. This book is quite the snob for something that's already reached the 8th heaven. In reality, it still doesn't attract much attention. Dog meat hot pot. I heard that in the old society, people would get beaten for eating it. Fortunately, I didn't live in that era. Getting attacked just for eating meat sounds terrible, so I hoisted the beast up. I locked the demonic creature onto a steel tube rack. I touched my stomach. I was already hungry again. I prepped the pot, boiled the water, and added the tangerine peel. The aroma of the cooking meat was intoxicating and deeply satisfying. I spent the afternoon and evening processing the iron-tailed hawk. By the time the last piece was gone, the whole world felt more beautiful. Feeling the changes in my breathing, I took a sharp breath of cold air. I've already reached the 2nd heaven, and I've only eaten 3 of them. The biggest surprise was the change in my chestnut claws technique. Before, I could only leave surface marks on pebbles, but now I can pierce right through them. My chestnut claws have finally reached the level of minor mastery. According to the manual, an average person needs to swallow demon pills twice a month. They'd need over 10 pills and months of diligent practice to reach this stage. But me? I just ate 3 iron-tailed hawks, and I'm already there. For 7 days straight, I've done nothing but hunt and eat. Life is quiet and happy when you can finally eat until you're full. The rank of the demonic beasts I'm consuming is steadily increasing too. In just 1 week, my cultivation has skyrocketed to the terrifying 7th heaven. My cleaving claw technique is now perfected, far surpassing any average high schooler. I was finishing off another beast late at night while focusing on my breathing, when suddenly, I felt a strange movement at the front door. I frowned, wondering who would show up at this hour. It was exactly midnight as I crept toward the living room. I reached out and grabbed a steel saber hidden among the branches. This was my father's treasure, and right now, I needed its edge. Normal people don't just wander into a crematorium in the middle of the night. I slipped on my shoes, my eyes locked onto the entrance. My nose twitched, I caught a scent, and my expression instantly darkened. There's a demonic beast inside the city walls. That shouldn't be possible. I remembered what Uncle New warned me about, and it all started to click. Something isn't right. There might be a spatial rift near the crematorium. The thought chilled me, since the 13 cities keep spatial rifts under a total lockdown, especially the wild ones. I took a sharp sniff of the air. There was a demonic beast right outside the door, likely at the 5th heaven level. This was my moon-sniffing ability at work, a high-level sense that detects threats. It covers a 100-meter range and can even gauge cultivation levels. My eyes flashed. I felt a moment of hesitation about whether to call the city defense team. Before, that would have been my first instinct, but now that I'm armed, I'm doubting. A sudden, dark thirst for blood surged within me. I'm at the 7th heaven with a perfected technique. My blood is boiling for a fight. I made my decision instantly. After all, who doesn't want to get stronger? It's settled. I'll take down this demonic beast outside first. I'll use it as a test. I kept sniffing the air. I tightened my grip on the steel saber. I kicked the door open, but the sight of the beast made me rethink my plan. I had planned to use the saber to face it head-on, but it was a rat, a massive, monstrous rat. Its size wasn't any smaller than my own body. Its eyes were blood-red and glowing with a strange tint. They looked like copper bells, staring me down with pure hunger. The saliva dripping from the corners of its mouth was disgusting. The thing was starving, and I took a deep breath. I beckoned the rat toward me with a flick of my hand. A cold smile spread across my face. I was ready for this. Come here, I whispered, and the rat didn't hesitate. Whether it was provoked or just that hungry, it lunged. It pounced, and I stared it down without blinking. The books say you can't show weakness when facing a demonic beast. If you're a coward, you're dead. You have to be more ferocious than they are. Besides, my cultivation level was more than enough to crush it. The moment it flew through the air toward me, a golden light flashed in my eyes, and I saw my opening. I struck. I stood tall, concentrating my luck and mobilizing every ounce of my power. I thrust my right hand forward with everything I had. I hit it with a heavy blow as we crossed paths. The rat's entire body went into violent convulsions. 5 finger holes were punched clean through its spine, and I smiled. Ha! Mere rat scum dares to challenge your grandpa giant pain. This is your end. But immediately after, my legs started to give out. Damn it, I used way too much strength in that strike. It took me a full minute to finally recover my strength. I dragged the carcass to the incineration room to dismember it and check for a core. A green demonic core the size of a mung bean appeared, smelling absolutely foul. I dropped it into a bottle to preserve it, thinking I'd trade it for cash later. I need that money to pay off my debts, so I grabbed some empty bottles for the blood essence. Pure luck. Only then did I toss the rest of the mangled corpse into the incinerator. The flames roared to life as I shoveled in several loads of fuel. I slammed the door shut. Then, I headed outside to search for spatial fissures. I ran into several burrowing marmots along the way and used them all for target practice. My mastery over the upright claw technique grew deeper with every kill. I was finally learning exactly how much force to apply. None of these specific beast marks have ever been seen on the market before. Another burrowing beast fell before me. I realized I had surpassed the 6th heaven, and the surge of power thrilled me. The level of these demonic beasts was increasing. They were pouring out of the spatial fission in waves. Perfect. The beasts rushing out now are at the 5th or 6th heaven level. That means the highest point of this fissure likely won't exceed the 9th heaven. Research says these fissures lead to fragmented regions. It could be a broken continent, a hidden lake, or a vast ocean. The strength of these demonic beasts is limited, but the potential treasures are anything but. Someone once found a high-level artifact in a low-level rift and became a god-tier genius overnight. Less than a kilometer from home, I spotted a shimmering silver fissure growing like an eye on a tree. I didn't hesitate and dove straight in, the glow of the hunting rift dimming as I crossed the threshold. At that exact moment, the Nanshan City Guard triggered the emergency alarms. Energy fluctuations detected on the outskirts of Nanshan. All nearby investigation teams report in. The energy level isn't high, but the perimeter is expanding. All units in the vicinity are ordered to proceed with the mission. Rookie teams are being sent in for backup. After a blinding flash of light, I felt solid ground beneath my feet again and opened my eyes to scan the area. The saber at my waist gleamed silver against the oppressive darkness. I was inside the hunting rift, where two deep paths diverged to the left and right. They looked identical, both choked with dense, tangled growth. The jungle was thick, and I could sense the danger hovering in the air. To the left, there are at least a dozen 8-land rats with cultivation levels above the 5th heaven. To the right, there are fewer, maybe 7 or 8, and their strength is about the same. It's obvious which path I should take. I felt a surge of gratitude for the sense of smell I took from Xiao Yuru. I stepped onto the right path. The moment I entered, 8 rats with glowing red eyes lunged at me, but I didn't even flinch. The experience I've gained on this journey means I'm no longer a rookie. I know exactly how to fight. Vertical claw, palm like a blade, my body blurred into motion. I dodged and countered instantly. Those 8-land rats couldn't even last one round, falling to the ground in seconds with bloody finger holes in their skulls. I almost felt like I was bullying them. My 7th heaven vertical claw is fully mastered and incredibly powerful. It's standard equipment for close combat, but I forced my way to this level of mastery. The most twisted part? They never even saw it coming. My heightened sense of smell makes it even better. I can predict the enemy's every move, so these rats never stood a chance at a sneak attack. I kept walking, casually picking my nose as I moved deeper in. After 20 minutes of trekking, I finally reached the end of the trail. The sight in front of me left me stunned. Holy crap, is that a temple? I sniffed the air carefully. There was no danger, just this massive structure stretching out before me. What is a peaceful temple radiating Buddhist light doing in a place like this? A small Shaolin monk wearing a luxurious robe stepped out from the temple gates. He bowed politely and said, "This humble monk greets the benefactor. Please, come inside to talk." I was completely clueless. I thought I was here to slay monsters, not have a chat. What exactly is going on here? I didn't sense even a hint of danger coming from this monk. I mimicked his polite tone and asked, "I'm just passing through. How did you know I was coming?" He explained that a magic formation surrounds the 1000 Buddha mountain, alerting them the moment I arrived. If this mountain is so powerful, why haven't they cleared out the demonic beasts at the foot of it? He claimed the formation is incomplete and can only barely protect the temple grounds. I nodded, realizing I couldn't just stand there forever. There's no reason to be a coward. Whatever happens, I have to go in. But the moment I did, I crossed the threshold, and my brow furrowed instantly at a foul stench. Blood. The smell of blood was overwhelming to my heightened senses. In front of me, a group of young men in monk robes sat in the main hall. They were chanting scriptures on prayer cushions, looking compassionate and devoted. But I stayed on high alert because that metallic scent was thick in the air, and it was coming directly from them. The monk, Liao Chun, made an inviting gesture, flashing his white teeth at me. It nearly scared me to death. The dim light outside had hidden the truth of his face. But just then, Liao Chun flashed that smile again. What did I see? Strands of raw flesh stuck in his teeth and the stench of blood. It was overpowering, but I kept my head down and followed him anyway. A few moments later, he led me into a Zen meditation cell. Liao Chen smiled and said, "The abbot says anyone who visits is a guest, especially now. It isn't easy to reach 1000 Buddha Mountain. Please, stay here until the abbot can see you. Since you are a man of the world, you must crave meat. A beast died at our gates last night, so we've prepared a soup for you." My internal alarms went off instantly. This place was wrong. Liao Chun mentioned the mountain was crawling with demonic beasts, and a dark thought crossed my mind. Are these monks actually eating the monsters? I sat cross-legged on the cushion and forced myself to stay calm. A short while later, Liao Chun returned with a feast. He set down a bowl of fragrant meat, grinning ear to ear. "Eat while it's hot, benefactor. We monks cannot touch meat, so there is plenty more in the pot for you." I stared intensely at the bowl of meat sitting before me. My heart hammered against my ribs as I looked at those damn monks. This wasn't wild chicken or some stray beast. This was clearly the flesh of a tiangue. I knew this scent all too well. If I ate this, within 3 days, the transformation would begin. It would hijack my energy control system entirely. Total contamination, and then the floodgates would open. I finally understood. Could it be? Was that raw flesh in his teeth actually the meat of a demonic beast? This entire group of monks is eating monsters. Damn it. How long have they been feeding on this filth? Once you embrace that power, you're a ticking time bomb. They were a pack of walking disasters. Liao Chen stared at me, watching my every move. He spoke slowly, asking why I wasn't eating as his smile twisted into something horrific. I didn't dare show my terror. Instead, I forced a smile of my own. I looked at him and said, "It's not that I don't like it. It's just that your cooking is terrible." His face went rigid as he asked what I meant, his tone turning cold and demanding. The air in the room froze. This guy was at least at the 9th heaven realm. I suppressed my fear and asked, "You're monks. What do you know about meat? Show me the kitchen, and I'll show you real talent." He stood there stunned, and the aura of danger slowly dissipated as he agreed to see my skills. In the kitchen, a pot of iron-tailed eagle was stewing, and I cursed them 1,000 times in my head. I thought to myself, "You're really trying to be the death of me, aren't you?" I turned to Master Liao Chun and told him this required a special touch. This involves a secret family recipe, I said. Please, step back. He smiled and nodded, moving away from the stove. The kitchen door swung shut, locking me inside with the stench of demons. I let out a cold smile and pulled out my medicinal herbs. Back to cooking again. Damn it, you didn't expect this, did you? A man like me always has the resources to get the job done right. The rich aroma began to spread through the air instantly. I opened the door cautiously and asked, Master Liaochen, care for a bite? No, he replied. Kitchen staff shouldn't eat the meat. Please, enjoy it yourself. I didn't hold back and started devouring it right in front of him. Half an hour later, the entire iron-tailed eagle, soup, bones, and all, was gone. Liaochen sent me back to my room with a satisfied grin plastered on his face. The next morning, I opened my door and found him standing right there. He was holding another iron-tailed eagle, smiling like a maniac. What a coincidence, he said. Another wild bird died falling into the temple. My pupils contracted as I stared at the dead beast. An iron-tailed eagle just fell and died. Do you take me for a fool? I looked at him and said, that is lucky. Master Liaochen then. I'll handle it myself, just like before. He nodded with that same smile. But that look of his sent a piercing chill straight down my spine. I thought, if I don't go to hell, who will? And so, I spent the day preparing yet another demonic beast for my own stomach. He's only at the third heaven, so his cultivation isn't that high, but this temple is too strange. I wanted to leave, but just as I was about to speak, Liaochen arrived. His tone left absolutely no room for discussion. The abbot has some free time. He heard a handsome young man is visiting and wants to speak with you. I swallowed the words I was about to say and forced a smile, claiming I'd long admired Buddhism. These monks are at the 7th or 8th heaven, dozens of them, and I can't fight them all. I realized one thing. As long as I don't cross their lines, I'll be fine. For example, I have to follow their lead. But refusing to eat the meat of a monarch beast? That's a death sentence. Every time I hesitate, Liaochen's gaze shifts with pure killing intent. Back at school, I heard about secret realms. Some are other worlds, others are infinite loops. This place is likely the latter, and these monks might be souls or projections from 1,000 years ago. I took a deep breath and straightened my back. I walked silently to the door of the cell as the sound of the wooden fish drum suddenly stopped. A senile, white-haired old monk looked at me with a thin smile. Are you the young donor who arrived? Last night, I nodded, standing right at the corner of the wall. He told me to sit, but the moment he opened his mouth, I froze. My pupils dilated in shock. There were strands of raw meat stuck between his teeth. Everyone on this 1,000 Buddha mountain has gone insane, and the stench of blood nearly made me gag. He had a question for me. Tell me, young donor, what do you think of my 1,000 Buddha mountain? I flashed a wide, 8-tooth smile and told him it was wonderful, great food, beautiful scenery, and a true paradise compared to the demon-infested world outside. A flash of genuine surprise crossed his face. A paradise? He repeated, letting out a dry laugh. That's a novel comparison. Since you like it so much, why not stay here at 1,000 Buddha mountain? Our influence has declined, but our heritage is deep. We have many secret arts. Which one would you like to learn? My eyes nearly popped out of my head. I knew from my textbooks that these kinds of cracks in reality existed. This was a trap designed to seduce the weak. If they were really that powerful, the demon beasts wouldn't have slaughtered them in this cycle. Whether these people were truly alive or just ghosts was impossible to tell. But to find a way to kill this old monk, I played along. If I could lock down the coordinates of this place, it would be a fortune for me or the authorities. Keeping it for myself wasn't an option yet, especially since I barely understood how this place worked. I don't know much about 1,000 Buddha Mountain, but if the abbot would allow me into the sutra library to study human history, that would be much better for me. The old monk stood there, completely dumbfounded. In all these years, I was the first person to ever make such a request. Usually, people either refuse or their eyes light up at the mention of secret arts. He stared at me, his mind clearly unable to process my lack of greed for a moment. I watched his expression closely, making sure I hadn't crossed a line yet. I pushed further, saying, two-way selection is popular these days. After all, what does the host think? He thought about it for a long time before finally nodding his head. Very well, but I can only give you 2 days, young donor. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I thanked the abbot, then added, by the way, can I see the ultimate skill first? I told him I needed to understand the true strength of the mountain before committing. The old monk froze again, his mind struggling to follow my logic. He looked genuinely confused, as if he couldn't decide whether to be angry or not. Seeing him hesitate, I quickly pressed my advantage. Abbot, if you don't show me your power, how can I be sure this is the right place for me? He nodded subconsciously and ordered someone to lead me to the pavilion. I laughed to myself. This old monk wasn't just slow, he was losing his grip on reality. He was a hypocrite to the core, clinging to his holy image even while being completely immoral. First, he makes me eat monster corpses while pretending it's a feast. He expects me to act like a loyal minister to his kingdom. I could play that role, but there was no need to be sincere. Second, I'm pretending I actually want to join this 1,000 Buddha mountain cult. In reality, I just want to tear this place apart from the inside. Joining might bring benefits, but it's a dangerous trap. Once you're officially in, the price for trying to leave is usually your life. So I took a shortcut. I'll join, but only after I've scouted every bit of their strength. Following Shenzhen, I arrived at a small 3-story building. Master, this is where the secret arts are kept. It's divided into 2 parts. He's already treating me like one of his own, his tone much kinder now. First, you can only choose 1 secret art from the 3rd floor. Don't be greedy. I gave him a simple nod. Second, you must come out within 2 hours. The heavy doors groaned open. The moment they cleared, I stepped inside. Shelves upon shelves of books lined the walls. I didn't expect Mount Qianhua to have so many techniques. But in reality, I couldn't care less about their secret arts. The training guides back in City 13 were compiled by the ultimate heavy hitters. Those manuals were written by the true big shots of the world. They are leagues beyond anything this pathetic mountain in a grotto space could offer. City 13 follows the path of devouring demonic beasts to gain power. It's the simplest and strongest way to obtain skills directly. You just consume the beast and take its strength. Traditional techniques like these still require years of tedious learning. A demonic soul grants the ability instantly, and more importantly, the City 13 guides provide a clear, orderly path of inheritance. Why would I cast aside my desires to learn ghostly techniques? I'm not crazy. Who should I ask? How do I know so much? They teach this in school. Back when I attended classes, I absolutely loved it. I loved reading the stories of the great cultivators. The books were filled with anecdotes about a man named Yuan. For instance, how a genius entered the life of another genius and became a legend. He entered a grotto space and obtained the T35 techniques. He went from dead last to the top 3 in the entire city's college entrance exam. He was a divine prodigy, slapping down countless favored ones from the heavens. But later, when he went to university to choose a tutor, he failed miserably. Nobody would accept him, and his tricks didn't work anymore. In the end, he was forced to explore the path on his own. While others improved rapidly, he remained completely stagnant. This cautionary tale is promoted all over City 13 as a warning. It's a reminder not to think you're smarter than everyone else. So, I have zero interest in the secret arts on this 3rd floor. This is nothing more than an excuse to buy myself some time. I open a book and start reading anyway. The 1st floor is filled with records and anecdotes about Yuan. This kind of lore is exactly what I enjoy the most. After about an hour, I've already finished 2 books. Suddenly, my nose twitches. What is that incredible smell? Others can't detect it, but I have the heavenly body. With my heightened senses, I can tell this scent is something special. It's completely irresistible. I set my book down without a word. I start searching for the source. But as soon as the girl's mother leaves, something changes. My body starts moving like a machine on its own. What the hell is happening to me? I try desperately to regain control of my limbs, but I can only watch myself move. I'm walking forward against my will. I head straight toward a specific bookshelf. I watch my own hands reach out and secretly shift the shelf. Am I going crazy? Then, I hear a faint mechanical click. A staircase appears before me, leading down into a deep, dark secret room. My hand reaches out and grabs a candle. I slowly descend, my mind screaming no, while my body refuses to listen. I walk for what feels like forever until I hear a loud creak. The path behind me vanishes, and suddenly, I can move on my own again. I spin around, scanning the darkness. Who the hell is doing this to me? I scream out, but the only response is a howling wind. It sounds like a soft, whispering drizzle. Wait, where is wind, even coming from in a basement? A mournful, seductive woman's voice echoes. Giant pain, come save me. The voice feels like it's crawling under my skin. Terror grips my chest. I grip the candle tight, cursing under my breath in pure horror. My heart skips a beat. Who is this woman? Right in front of me sits a massive crystal coffin. It glows with an eerie, unnatural light. I swallow my fear and force myself to step closer. At this point, there's no use in running away. I have to solve this myself. The only way out is to break through this situation. But the closer I get, the more horrified I become. A woman is lying inside that crystal coffin. She is breathtakingly beautiful, dressed in a vibrant red wedding robe. The fabric is brilliant, perfectly preserved in the dark. A silk sash is tied around her waist. She's incredibly slender, yet her curves are impossible to ignore. Everything about her looks extraordinary. Her face glows with the soft radiance of a sunset. I can't help but rub my eyes in disbelief. For a second, I thought her eyes were welling up, pleading with me. Then, that voice moans again. Giant pain, erase the Buddhist seal. Let me out. I want to be with you, hurry. Damn it, my body is losing control again. My hand reaches out toward the Buddha seal on the crystal coffin. Inside, I'm screaming, don't do it, stop. I'm fighting with every ounce of my will. This is something sinister, something I can't afford to provoke. If I release this corpse, I'm a dead man. A sharp creak echoes through the room, making my heart race. Suddenly, the world goes pitch black. I lose consciousness, slipping into a nightmare. When I finally open my eyes, I'm back in my room. Liao Chun is hovering over me, looking worried. Master, what happened? She asks. Maybe you're just malnourished. Liao Chun tells me I was in the sutra library for 2 hours, ignoring her calls. She finally went inside and found me unconscious on the floor. Don't be afraid, she says. Drink more pheasant soup and you'll feel better. I feel better, but I'm secretly cursing that pheasant in my head. If I were an ordinary person, she would have played me to death by now. I suppress the fear in my heart and ask her a tentative question. Liao Chun looks at me with doubt, wondering what I'm after. I stay silent and sniff the soup. The aroma is right, so I start eating. I take one bite after another, focusing only on the food. The smile on Liao Chen's face grows wider and happier with every swallow. Maybe it's because I fainted, but the old monk hasn't come looking for me. Liao Chen doesn't mention that secret sexual technique again either. She unexpectedly lets me keep living here just like this, but there's a catch. Every day, she feeds me stronger demonic beasts, like the 7th heaven iron-tailed eagle. By the 3rd day, I'm eating 9th heaven eagles and gain a new skill, Eagle Eye. My cultivation hits the 9th heaven, but my heart feels heavier with every bird I consume. To my eyes, the entire temple is now soaked in a strange, volatile atmosphere. Even the way Liao Chen looks at me has turned predatory and strange. At night, I stay in my room refining my skills, sensing danger closing in. I'm at the 9th heaven now. If I have to, I'll carve a path out of here by force. Inside the old monk's room, a dim candle flickers as a raspy voice breaks the silence. Liao Chen is kneeling on the floor, reporting that she saw me eat the demonic beast corpse without turning. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. The monk mutters that it's impossible for me to resist the transformation without his secret recipe. The hidden technique of Qianfa Mountain is the only way. He growls. How can he resist the demonization? He accuses her of lying, his voice sounding like something out of a nightmare. He's ready to snap. He lifts Liao Chen off the ground by force, his grip tightening around her throat. She stares into his eyes, seeing nothing but pure, tyrannical madness. She screams in desperation, "Abbot, I wouldn't dare lie. I saw him eat it with my own eyes." The abbot examines the situation and orders a 9th heaven iron-tailed eagle for tomorrow. This is the law of Qianfo Mountain, he declares, and it is the law here. Once he releases her, Liao Chen gasps for air, her body trembling with terror. She mentions that the iron-tailed eagles have recently become much smarter. They've started fleeing Qianfo Mountain. There are only enough left for 2 more days. The abbot tells her to leave and not to worry about the eagles. I will handle the matter of life, he says coldly. For 10 days, the eagles around the mountain have been hunted nearly to extinction. As the supply runs dry, the old monk's irritation grows more dangerous by the hour. Even the people in the temple are starting to get restless. They look at me like they want to devour me whole. Liao Chen has returned, asking if I'm ready to eat more chicken today. I just smile and give her a casual wave. After days of gorging on demonic beasts, I finally reached the Linjin stage, and I can feel the tension leaving my body. I'm invincible now, no matter what that old monk is plotting. Whatever he throws at me, I can handle it. I've already hit the absolute limit of what this space allows. I can feel it. If I weren't capped, my cultivation would keep skyrocketing. This whole mess turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Someone delivers demonic food to my door every single day, and I couldn't be happier. But then, he shows up. The old monk appears, looking like an omen of death. He tells me he's added a special dish to my meal, a set of pills he claims to have refined himself. He says he noticed my body was weak and came to offer me this medicine. I stand there, completely dumbfounded. I stare at the items he's placed in front of me. Inside, my heart is racing with pure joy. These aren't just pills, these are high-level demonic cores. I keep a straight face and say, "What kind of pills are these?" "Well, thank you very much, everyone. I don't actually need to eat these to gain abilities since the demonic meat does that for me. But I can sell these for a fortune, and a poor kid like me knows the value of a payday." But the old monk's triangular eyes were fixed right on me. He told me he refined these himself and insisted I swallow one immediately. "Please, eat it now," he said. "The medicinal effect is much stronger that way." I was a little surprised by his persistence. This old monk clearly has bad intentions, but I'm not afraid at all. Is this some kind of game update? I've seen this pattern lately. He's trying every trick in the book to corrupt me, probably because I'm still pure. The demonic food stopped working on me, so now he's moving on to demonic pills. When it comes to swallowing demonic pills, people like me never hesitate. It all comes down to the guiding technique, the foundation of our entire cultivation system. It's the secret the great masters researched to let us consume demonic energy safely. I just smiled at him and said, "All right then. Thank you, Abbot." I reached into the case and picked out the one that looked the best. I stared down at the demonic pill in my hand. I used to fantasize about the day I'd finally eat one, and now it's actually happening. I swallowed it without hesitation and immediately activated my guiding technique. The monk watched my every move, his face flushing as he waited for me to transform. But the moment the core touched my tongue, the demonic trace vanished instantly. The pages in my mind flipped to a new entry, Iron-tailed Eagle, 8th Heavenly Layer. It contains a trace of demonic lineage, a thread of memory, and the method for ingestion. Combined with bitter chrysanthemum and camellia seeds, the demonic power can be fully harnessed. The evaluation says the lineage is too thin, but it's better than nothing. I almost laughed out loud. This is just too good. It turns out swallowing demonic cores works for me too. If I follow the book's recipes, I can strengthen my physical body even further. Where is an iron-tailed eagle strongest? Its claws, eyes, and wings. I'm human, so I'll ignore the wings, but the claws correspond to my hands. By devouring this core, I can boost the strength of my hands and my vision. It'll give me an edge over everyone else, even if this dose was a bit small. The old monk stared at me, stunned to see a look of pure satisfaction on my face. He was furious, deciding right then that he had to catch this monster at all costs. I've eaten so many demonic beasts in a core without a single trace of corruption. To him, I'm a freak of nature, a treasure he can use to research a new way of living. The temple survives on recipes that merely delay demonization, but I'm something else entirely. He looked at me like a prize, but just as he was about to move, he felt a sudden chill. I've been here too long tonight. It's time to go, but I still don't know the way out. The mountain path has vanished, and as I lay in bed unable to sleep, I heard footsteps. Liao Chen's voice drifted in. Master, the abbot requests your presence. My heart sank. The abbot's expression earlier was a bad omen, and this is no dinner invitation. My right hand twitched slightly, feeling the power of my Grandmaster level Force claws. My heart steadied. This spirit realm skill is the only source of confidence I need. Here they come. The moment I swung the door open, a staff came crashing down toward my head. A sneak attack, but my Force claws activated instantly, and I caught the staff midair. Liao Cheng's eyes widened in pure shock. I looked at him with a cold smile and asked, Master Liao Cheng, what's the meaning of this? His face turned bright red as the rest of the disciples emerged from the shadows. The senior brothers were all there, a swarm of bald monks rushing out at once. Terrifying faces, frenzied pupils, and the stench of blood, they looked just like the corrupted. Liao Chen burst into a manic laugh and shouted, Get him! Capture him alive for the abbot's reward, and there will be medicinal soup for everyone. They chanted kill, 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 like a pack of rabid animals. Did they really think I was some soft target they could just push around? I let out a sharp snort of contempt. My expression went cold as my figure began to flicker with speed. I extended my index finger toward the first attacker. It glowed with a deadly, pale white light. My Force claws lashed out in a blur of violence. In this spirit realm, I might as well be a god. It was time to deal with this problem. A group of low-level monks was more than enough to test my strength. 30 seconds. The struggle came to an abrupt, violent halt. Liao Cheng's confidence crumbled instantly. His manic laughter twisted into pure horror. Impossible. How could he be this strong? He stammered. I felt the warm blood dripping from my claws and whispered, This is thanks to you. A wide, predatory grin spread across my face. Villains usually die from talking too much, so I slammed my palm into his skull, leaving 5 bloody holes. I looked toward the shadows, knowing the abbot was still hiding like a coward. Suddenly, a deafening roar echoed through the temple. I watched him approach with my hands behind my back and let out a mock scoff. Anyone can bark, but you're too scared to bite, aren't you? Otherwise, why let your men die? The old monk's triangular eyes glowed a demonic red, boiling with rage. Seeing his fury only made me laugh harder. We're both in the spirit realm. Tell me the way out, and I might spare your life. He cackled and replied, If I could leave, would I still be here? You're naive, boy. You haven't turned yet, but don't think you're leaving. Stay here and let me peel away your secrets. A knot tightened in my chest. Was there really no way out of this place? The great mountain array of the 1,000 Buddhas only allows entry, never exit. Where did you get that mole rat and the key-tailed falcon? I demanded. I raised them, he sneered, and my disciples can't leave either. To survive, you must eat demonic beasts. He thinks I have no escape, so he's spilling every dark secret he has. I finally understood. It was just as I suspected, all centered around a demonic alchemy recipe. I looked at the corpses on the ground and asked, Then why keep me? With a twisted smile, he said the recipe requires the flesh of the youngest disciple, 1 spoonful a day to stave off madness. This is why it's called the Mountain of 1,000 Buddhas. You didn't expect that, did you? My skin crawled as the realization hit me. Are you saying out of 3,814 people, only these few are left? That's right, he hissed. He looked proud, basking in his own depravity. My stomach churned with pure disgust. This wasn't a temple. It was a living purgatory that he could never escape. I stared at his savage face with boiling rage, knowing all his disciples were now dead. With your men gone, how will you make your medicine? I challenged. He laughed like a maniac, pointing at the bodies. These corpses will sustain me for 10 years, but what about you? You're already dead, he growled, and your constitution belongs to me. His eyes were drowning in greed, but I just started laughing. You want to eat me, old man? Do you even have the guts? The hair on his neck stood up as he barked. Humph, what are you laughing at? I didn't run away. Instead, I walked to the corner of the room and ripped down the heavy curtain. I set it ablaze, watching the flames roar toward the ceiling. I asked him calmly, If I burn every corpse in here, how many days will you last? Steam practically hissed from his head as he roared. You dare. My hand gave a mock tremble, and I let the lighter fall toward the door. The sheets ignited instantly, and the fire began to spread across the floor. He was losing his mind. Every body in this room was his only means of survival. The little monk with the grotesque face stood in the soft glow of the fire. But there was no peace in him, only a murderous, suffocating rage. You fool, he barked. Are you begging for death? How dare you? I held up my hands with an innocent look and said, You're screaming too loud, old man. My hand slipped. He raised a sutra, his fingers tensing like claws. His skin was deathly pale, and his fingernails gleamed with a sickly light. I felt a chill at his raw power, wondering how many demons he'd eaten, but I wasn't afraid. The old monk lunged with a palm strike, but I pivoted and dodged his move. I stepped to the left, searching for a weakness despite my lack of speed skills. I grabbed him with all my strength, but his flesh felt disturbingly soft under my grip. I looked up and met his gaze, nearly gagging at what I saw. The skin on his arm had peeled away, revealing a cluster of countless, throbbing pustules. Good grief, it's like I'm playing Resident Evil in real life. He glared at me with blood on his teeth and hissed, "Resident Evil? I don't understand, but I will become a demonic beast." I spat on the ground and said, "Me? Lucky, you can take your monk's blessing and shove it." He roared a holy name of Buddha with a voice that shook the walls. "If I do not enter hell, who will?" he screamed. "I'll take your life right now." His body was small, but his mutated arm began to swell to a grotesque size. It transformed into a cluster of sharp, impenetrable claws that moved as fluidly as flowing water. I could only defend myself with my eagle claw technique, thankful he only had one mutated arm to deal with. In an instant, my eyes lit up as I spotted an opening in his frantic assault. I slid across the floor, narrowly dodging the old monk's massive shadow. I pivoted and launched a lightning-fast strike at his remaining normal arm. I poured every ounce of my strength into the blow. The limb hit the floor with a heavy thud, and blood began to spray uncontrollably. The old monk howled in agony. "I want you dead. I'll kill you." I was right. This old monster was nothing more than a half-finished experiment. He stumbled, completely losing his balance without the weight of his limb. I didn't give him a second to breathe and lunged forward immediately. I closed the distance and delivered a crushing blow directly to his left leg. I felt the bone shift and snap under the pressure of my strike. He looked at me with a face full of shock, unable to believe his iron wall cultivation was so useless. I didn't stop there. I sliced through his right leg too. I stood there with my hands on my hips, laughing my head off. "I'm just too damn smart." "Hey, old monk, where'd all that arrogance go? Come on." He looked lost, the shock of it making him forget the pain, but I didn't let him finish his thought. My hand was already coming down. I punched bloody holes straight through his skull. Finally, I let out a breath of relief, though my heart was still hammering like a drum. After all, this was the first time I'd actually killed someone. I realized then that this old monk's spirit realm was completely broken. He couldn't even use it in battle. Was it because I didn't know how to trigger it, or did he not know either? I couldn't tell. The temple was engulfed in flames, the fire reaching toward the sky, and I felt a pang of regret. I had entered this place and fought for my life, yet I hadn't gained a single thing. So much for the stories about finding heavenly treasures in hidden realms. I sighed, thinking that if the old monk knew how little I'd gained, he'd probably vomit blood. He did everything to hunt that iron-tailed eagle just to feed me and raise my spirit realm. I blew a strand of burnt hair out of my face, made sure I was still handsome, and looked back one last time. Goodbye, Mount Chanfua. Goodbye, old monk. I actually felt a strange bit of sadness as I headed back. The demonic beast had vanished. Strange, but I wasn't going to stick around to investigate. This world is already absurd enough as it is. I finally found the glowing entrance to the rift and stepped through it in an instant. Copy that, copy that. The rookie squad has arrived. We have reached the designated location. Repeat, the shield is a mental exercise. Rookie squad is on site. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest. I immediately dove into the tall grass as the city guard approached. They were decked out in standard gear. City 13 really is humanity's last hope with a response time like that. But the timing didn't make sense unless this was a time rift. The textbooks say time rifts are extremely dangerous, no matter how long you spend inside them. Because when you step out, you return to the exact moment you left. 10 years of cultivation inside is just 1 second in the outside world. A rift like this could be sold for 80 million credits. It's the kind of resource that allows people to leap across social classes. The great families use them to maintain their dominance. They solidify the space and accelerate time within the rift. It lets their geniuses get double the results with half the effort. The more I thought about it, the more my heart ached at the lost fortune. But what could I do? This prize was way too big for me to handle alone. I watched helplessly as the rookie squad approached the rift. 1 step, 2 steps, they lifted their feet, and then they froze. Whoa, it's empty. Shit, I almost screamed out loud. The light from the rift suddenly flickered and died out. That group of elite masters was right there. They were so close they almost fell flat on their faces. One of the female team members looked around in shock. She stammered, "Captain, did we miss it? Did we already go inside? I guess. Or maybe it just didn't let us in." Even the captain looked completely bewildered as silence fell over them. These guys are supposed to be experts in rift regulations. But for the first time, they were doubting themselves. How could a rift just vanish on its own? It felt like we were still playing a game of hide and seek. "Forget it," the captain muttered. "If it's gone, it's gone. Pack it up." The rest of the squad nodded in defeat. I had to cover my mouth with both hands to keep from laughing out loud in the bushes. This was hilarious. 1 second, I was mourning a lost fortune, and the next, I realized no one could take it from me. It felt amazing, like eating a cold ice cream in the middle of a scorching summer. My spirits were at an all-time high. I silently crawled away, patted the dirt off my pants, and headed home. That night, I slept like a baby. I slept deeply, no matter how chaotic the world was outside. Once I'm inside my house, it's like 2 different worlds. Ordinary people will never know that someone is always moving through the darkness. Dawn broke, and I finally woke up. I stretched, feeling completely refreshed, and headed straight to the incineration room. I still had some heavenly howling wolf meat from the 8th dimension, perfect for breakfast. I fired up the pot, heated the oil, and started cooking. I finished eating and patted my full belly, feeling extremely satisfied. This is what I call living, pure happiness. I didn't want to waste time, so I quickly cleaned the pots and dishes. Things were returning to normal, and my parents were coming back since the week was over. It was perfect timing, as I also had to head to school for remedial classes. Before, I didn't care about school. If I could sleep through it, I would. But things are different now. I can't stop my mind from racing, but I have a reputation to maintain. The principal and the cleaning staff all know me, so I need to go and learn something. Gaining a little knowledge is a small price to pay. While washing up, I suddenly frowned. When did this happen? There was a red dot on my left wrist, about the size of a mole. I touched it, but it didn't hurt or itch. It definitely wasn't there before. Maybe I'm sick. I've heard stories. They say men with messy private lives catch certain diseases. But the location is all wrong, and the symptoms don't match what I've read. I stared at it for a long time, couldn't figure it out, and just let it go. I had just finished cleaning up the house. The door lock clicked. Dad and Mom were home. Father, Mother, my dear mother is finally back. Did I miss them? You bet I did. I ran straight to the door. My mother, Yao Yujin, looked at me and said, "Brat, you've been eating well, haven't you?" My father, Jian Wanli, stared at me in total surprise. "Son, your spirit and energy, they look incredible. I've never felt more satisfied. I've been eating until I burst these last few days." So, naturally, I was practically radiating health. But suddenly, I felt a surge of fear. I was terrified they would notice the truth. There hadn't been too many changes, right? Yao Yujin narrowed her eyes and looked at me with deep suspicion. I couldn't stand the weight of that gaze. How could an honest young gentleman like me lie? I grabbed my bag and bolted out the door, shouting that I was heading to school to study. I've already missed way too much. Behind me, Jian Wanli looked at my mother in total shock. Is that really our son? He's actually afraid of missing class. I took the long way around, making sure to avoid the street where the Dongfang family lived. When I finally reached the school gates, I rubbed my eyes in disbelief. Brother Ping, you're finally here. You broke your word. Where are the books you promised me? It's been 7 days. Do you have any idea what I've been through this week? I slapped my forehead. I had completely forgotten about him. My reputation for being an honest man was about to go down the drain. This kid was the younger brother of a local family, and I was the one who had stood him up. He looked anxious, rambling about how human history books are vital to mankind. To him, those stories were as sacred as ancient stone monuments. I just turned my back on him as the music started playing. The school bell rang, and I pretended not to hear him, shouting that I'd make it up to him after class. The little brat behind me looked like he was on the verge of tears. Brother Ping, look at me. Wait. He started jumping and chasing after me, but the security guard stepped in. Kid, what do you think you're doing? Get back here. This isn't a place for people like you to just wander around. Get back here right now. The kid puffed out his chest and shouted, I am Ozo, Sanshiro Lili. Is this not just a simple school for cultivators? It's no big deal. Sooner or later, I'll be a student here too. The security guard gave him a patronizing smile and said, Sure kid, I believe you. He patted the boy on the head like he was calming a stray dog. The kid rolled his eyes and snapped. Who even are you? I don't need your validation. He looked toward the gates, but my figure was already fading into the distance. And he's gone. Wow, Brother Ping is fast. The security guard just stood there, completely stunned by the brat's attitude. I ducked around a corner and took a deep breath, finally safe from the chaos. Suddenly, a heavy hand slammed down on my shoulder. Giant pain. Getting chased all the way to school by a primary student? You're really something. My heart nearly jumped out of my chest, but I forced myself to stay calm. My muscles tensed up, but I immediately plastered a smile on my face. Lon, do you think I'm losing my teeth again? My jaw has been killing me lately. She was standing there in the wind, dressed in sharp, black training gear. Her hair was tied in a high ponytail, looking absolutely dazzling. She held a knife in her left hand, its sheath crafted from fine leather. She slowly drew the blade from its sheath. Giant pain. Do you really think I won't cut you? This wasn't the first time I'd used my lifeblood trick to fool her. I moved quickly and grabbed her wrist with a grin. Lon, it's not my fault that kid is so gullible. I'm just teaching him how the real world works. She was still trying to pull the knife out of my grip. Your strength is greater than mine today, she noted coldly. Aren't you afraid I might lose my grip on this blade? I stayed silent, realizing I had made a massive mistake. Before I could say a word, Liz arrived and the mood died instantly. A roar echoed from right behind us. Giant pain, let go of Lanlin's hand and get your filthy paws off her. I turned around and almost burst out laughing at the sight of him. I turned back to her with a smirk. Classmate Lissimu, didn't the teacher ever show you any manners? He was absolutely furious, the supposed heir of his noble house. I had tricked the family heir so badly, he couldn't even think straight. He looked like he had just lost the element of surprise. His sister had given him a solid beating that left him depressed for a week. I figured by tomorrow, I'd be back in my rightful place at the top. I'm nothing more than a useless brat who can't even cultivate. I even fantasized about how he would react. When I finally took my leave, a total leave of absence, 7 full days of freedom. If it weren't for his young master attitude, I would have come to collect. The debt had to be paid. That's just how the world works. The world hasn't changed, and neither has he. Just this morning, he saw me having coffee with my mother. Then he saw me holding this new woman's hand. He couldn't even swallow his food after that. He could barely keep himself together. Let's settle this one-on-one, I thought, but he had other plans. He started calling everyone over like a coward. Brothers and sisters, gather around. What a genius move. Spoken like a true young master. This lineup of people was enough to film 30 different soap operas. He grew even more arrogant seeing the crowd. The more witnesses, the better. He actually believed his justice was guaranteed to win. Wait, classmate Lissimo, who are you calling a dog's paw? The crowd stood there, staring out at the street with their mouths wide open. Senior Alan Lon was absolutely furious. This new young master is an idiot if he doesn't know Lon stands for justice. Last time off campus, a thug was bullying Brother Pinsy and Lon cracked his skull. She beat him until he was crawling on the floor looking for his teeth. Gumo was practically losing his mind. Lissimo was beyond livid. Why was this happening? But looking at the person standing right in front of him, he forced himself to swallow his rage. Lon, get out of the way, he growled. This is between Giant Pain and me. Her eyes turned ice cold. Good God, she grabbed me and pulled me behind her back. Then, she drew her sword. She pointed it straight at Lissimo and said, Giant Pain's business is my business. If you want your surprise back, stop dreaming. It's your own fault for being so careless. He stood there, completely stunned. He couldn't believe a top-tier rookie was actually defending a useless guy like me. The blood rushed straight to his head in a blind rage. He let out a furious scream, desperate to regain control. Then he turned his venom toward me and spat. Giant Pain, are you even a man? Or do you only know how to hide behind a woman? I just smiled, not even bothering to answer a pathetic question like that. I casually gestured toward Xiao Wan with a look. Wan, explain the situation to this young master. Xiao Wan swallowed his chicken bone in 2 quick bites. He stood up slowly, wiping his mouth. He gave a mock salute to the crowd. The entire group started booing Lissimo instantly. Nobody cared about his status. Didn't he know how reality worked here? The Nanshan rules, Xiao Wan said, as Lissimo barked back. What rules? Xiao Wan spoke with a slow, dangerous edge to his voice. Brother Pinsy belongs to all of us, and we protect our own. I don't care if you're some pampered young master. Don't even mention your big shot connections here in Nanshan. If you dare touch a single hair on Brother Pinsy's head, you're finished. I, Xiao Wan, will lead the charge against anyone who touches him. The crowd erupted in cheers as Lissimo froze in shock. Suddenly, hundreds of people stepped up and stood right behind me. Some of them were even brandishing weapons. Others pulled out whatever heavy objects they could find. They formed a solid wall between me and Lissimo, forcing him back. He kept stumbling back, his mind racing with a single thought. This had to be impossible. He had done his homework. I was supposed to be a useless loser who couldn't even cultivate. So why was everyone risking their necks to protect me? I looked at him and asked, what about you? I'm the one who gave you the chance to see that video. What's wrong with me? Don't ask me that question. You're the one who looks down on everyone. All of you. You're all blind. Xiao Wan doubled over laughing and asked, young master, who gave you your intel? Lissimo's eyes widened as he screamed, you've all teamed up to trick me. It turned out Lissimo had been paying students to spy on me. But they've always protected me, so what could it be? I watched the scene unfold, feeling a surge of pride. I was both proud and deeply moved by their loyalty. But I couldn't just keep watching while I was still in a daze. I knew exactly when this needed to end. Just as I tried to step forward, a grim voice echoed through the air. Aren't you all supposed to be at morning training? Why are you gathered here? Giant Pain, get out here. Xiao Wan was the first one to bolt away. The others shouted in unison, Brother Ping, we're sorry. We can block an enemy with our bodies. But we can't block one of our own teachers. The black-faced god was coming for us. Run. The students who were ready to fight a second ago vanished in an instant. Lissimo was still standing there, completely frozen in shock. I reached out and grabbed Dong Fanlan's hand. I looked at her and said, what are you still staring at? Hurry up and let's get out of here right now. Lissimo was the only one left standing there alone. The black-faced god fixed his gaze on Lissimo. He asked with pure fury, is it true that you and Giant Pain caused this? I knew it was him, but I couldn't move. As the heir to the prestigious Li family, I couldn't just point a finger at a teacher. I kept my head down and stayed silent, wondering how to proceed. The black-faced god scanned the area and lost his voice for a moment. He actually admired Lissimo's silence and said, tell me who it was and I won't punish you. Lissimo didn't utter a single word. The teacher looked satisfied and barked, troublemaker, 50 extra laps and 100 strikes. Back in the classroom, Dong Fanlan complained while shaking her hand. What was the point of running, Giant Pain? He knew it was you with just one look. I shrugged and replied, is being caught in the act the same as him just knowing? She rubbed her wrist, looking at me intently. Her eyes were filled with a strange mix of doubt and realization. Giant Pain, have you actually gotten stronger? I dodged the question immediately. Maybe I've just been eating well lately. I thought back to that golden blood I had taken for myself. I had consumed every single drop of it. She frowned, clearly not buying my excuse. I worried she'd figure it out right there in the middle of the school building. Far away, Li Zimu's older sister bowed slightly to the principal. Director, I'm leaving Zimu's education entirely in your hands. The director sighed, looking at her with regret. Zimu, you were always the most fit to inherit the Li family legacy. She looked away, her voice firm and unwavering. Some things simply have to be done by someone. I can't just run away. The director remained silent for a long time after that. Attacking him like this, aren't you afraid he won't be able to take it? He is supposed to be a top-tier whetstone for our family. What if he actually breaks? Lee Zimu's sister just smiled coldly and said, then we'll just find another. The director stood there, stunned into silence by her ruthlessness. Meanwhile, Lisamu was still struggling through his 50 laps around the field. Every single step felt like a blade carving into his skin. His pace slowed to a crawl as the pain became unbearable. The crystal marble in his pocket thudded heavily against his chest with every stride. My legs were screaming in pain, but I couldn't stop. I didn't dare to even slow down. They say this kind of grit is how he became the head of discipline. From the third-floor window, the view of the courtyard was clear. Xiaowan approached me and whispered, Brother Giant Pain. She told me the young master had been caught, but they weren't letting us see him. As she spoke, Dong Fanlon and I locked eyes in pure shock. I expected to be dragged down with him, but he took the entire fall alone. I narrowed my eyes, watching the scene unfold. Dong Fanlon leaned in and muttered, looks like Lee Zimu is a real man after all. The school bell rang, signaling the start of the next period. Teacher Bai walked into the classroom. A jagged scar ran down his left cheek, making him look incredibly fierce. Nobody in their right mind would dare to skip his class. I sat up straight, my back like a rod. I focused entirely on the voice of the man at the front of the room. Dong Fanlon glanced at me and whispered, you're acting weird. I haven't seen you pay attention since primary school. I'm starting from zero, I thought, so don't bother me. I maintained my integrity and ignored him. Then, he poked me sharply with the tip of his pen. I let out a sharp cry of pain. I completely lost my composure. Teacher Bai's gaze snapped directly toward me. Student Giant Pain, he said coldly. Answer this question. He completely ignored Dong Fanlon, who was the one actually poking me. Did he really think a good kid like Dong Fanlon couldn't be the culprit? Apparently, in his eyes, I was the only one capable of causing trouble. I stared at the complex problem written on the chalkboard. I was so frustrated that my head started to spin. A wave of dizziness hit me, and I felt my spirit deflate. If I had known how to use chi back when I fought that old monk, I wouldn't have had to rely on brute physical strength alone. I looked around at the mocking expressions on my classmates' faces. Teacher Bai, please, I said, standing my ground. Just say it. What exactly do you want to say about me? Fine, he muttered, shaking his head. The entire classroom erupted into laughter at my expense. Even Teacher Bai's stern face twitched for a second. Deep down, he knew I was actually a very bright kid. Teacher Bai just sighed and muttered that I was far too mischievous. He pointed toward the back row, and I immediately got the hint to go sit there. It was the same old routine, but this time I made sure to grab my notebook and pen. Teacher Bai turned back to the board and continued with the lesson. Listen up, students, he said, his voice regaining its authority. This year is the most critical period for your development. You will all attempt to break the spiritual barrier, which determines which academy you'll enter. To wake up your fighting spirit, I'll make an exception and talk about your future. He began explaining the specific use of chi within the spiritual barrier. He detailed how the evaluation system had shifted after the recent operations. As he spoke, he scribbled complex formulas across the chalkboard. Then, he paused and turned his gaze toward Dong Fanlon. He gave her a look of pure encouragement. Everyone in the room understood what that look meant. Dong Fanlon was already on the verge of breaking her spiritual barrier. I could see the envy burning in the eyes of some of my classmates. Others just looked on in absolute shock. But nobody was really surprised. A genius is supposed to be a genius, after all. The proper use of chi is the most important weapon for the spiritual barrier, I continued. A barrier without chi is as useless as trying to cut through a sponge with a dull knife. As for me, I was dangerous, but useless, so he moved on to the history of the University of Badajoz. He started explaining skill structures and how to channel chi when exerting force. First, he demonstrated the transition from the wind-breaking slash to a standard strike. Dong Fanlon listened with absolute focus, ignoring everything else around her. She was currently digesting Kinyu Allen's inner core, and Teacher Bai clearly knew it. Even the students who couldn't follow the logic watched in total awe. Teacher Bai spoke with increasing passion, his energy filling the room. Dong Fanlon was scribbling furiously, filling page after page with notes. Just as the lesson was about to wrap up, I felt a surge of curiosity. I couldn't help myself. I raised my hand and looked at Teacher Bai with an eager grin. Teacher, I have a question. How do you optimize the communication system for better use? Specifically, when using the Irontail Camp's upright claw technique? The entire class froze and turned their heads toward me in unison. Teacher Bai let out a dry chuckle and teased. Well, Giant Pain, even a jar has its day to be studious. But this is way over your head. You should focus on how to stop causing trouble first. Did he have a problem? This was just our way of getting along, treating me like I'm handicapped. The more people worry about you, the more uncomfortable the day becomes. A real friend invites you to play soccer and makes you the goalie. They don't see a disability. In fact, they don't even see you as a person. So nobody here coddles me just because I can't cultivate. Everyone is brutally honest. My classmates immediately joined in on the mockery. Exactly, Brother Jar. You should focus on filling your stomach first. The spirit realm is way out of your league. Don't cause trouble, man. We agreed to be losers together. You can't just bail on us. Before, I would have played along and fired back. But now, I didn't have time for games. I snapped at them, my mood souring instantly. Everyone back off. I'm trying to have a serious discussion with teacher Bai, so why are you all butting in? That one sentence sent the entire class into a fit of hysterical laughter. They were clutching their stomachs and slamming their fists against the desks. One guy gave me a thumbs up and wheezed. Classic brother jar. That was the funniest thing I've ever heard. I felt the anger rising in my chest. These brats really looked down on me that much, huh? After being unable to cultivate for so long. Did they think I was just okay with being a joke? Who wouldn't want to slap the smug look off their faces just once? But I knew words were useless now. It was better to let the facts speak for themselves, so I decided to act. I suddenly reached my right hand out toward the bottom of the chalkboard. I executed a grandmaster-level movement with perfect precision. With a cold huff, my 5 fingers struck, a faint red light flowed, and 5 holes appeared instantly. 5 deep holes were carved right into the chalkboard. The entire class froze in their tracks. Silence fell, and it felt like time itself had stopped. Dong Fonglan went quiet, and Xiao Wan's eyes nearly popped out of his head. The teacher stood there, completely stunned by the aura I was radiating. That red aura, it's the spirit realm, he screamed internally. In that single moment, I lowered my hand, having clearly made my mark. It was obvious to everyone now that Giant Pain was finally spiritually awakened. Watching the crowd descend into total shock, my lips curled into a slight smirk as I tucked my hands coolly behind my back. The classroom was dead silent. This chalkboard is a bit too fragile, gentlemen. Mind if I use your heads for practice instead? My youthful aura surged toward the ceiling like a pillar of fire. Dong Fonglan's eyes began to well up with tears. She was overwhelmed with pure emotion. You're trembling, Giant Pain. You can actually cultivate. Xiao Wan and the others snapped out of it and rushed forward to hug me like crazy. My God, Brother Ping, you can actually cultivate. The entire class exploded, completely forgetting they were even in a lesson. Holy crap, my Brother Ping is a cultivator. Heaven doesn't disappoint those with heart. Brother Ping finally did it. They swarmed me from every direction. They looked happier than if they'd leveled up themselves as they hoisted me into the air. But suddenly, I felt a wave of boredom wash over me. Shouldn't they have doubted me first? Questioned my power. I was supposed to crush them in a duel before making my grand return. Instead, they were being so damn enthusiastic. It honestly made me feel a little awkward. Then, I don't know who it was, but someone ran out into the hallway and started screaming at the top of their lungs. Huge news. Brother Ping can cultivate. Everyone come see. In an instant, the entire floor was in an uproar as heads poked out of every classroom. Giant Pain. Brother Ping can cultivate. The news spread like wildfire, and a massive crowd gathered outside the door. They watched as my classmates tossed me up and down like a trophy. Even the teacher just stood there, watching the chaos unfold. I had finally washed away my years of shame. I had become a public spectacle, a monkey in a show for everyone to gawk at. I silently covered my face in pure embarrassment. Up and down I went, waiting for the excitement to finally die down. Then the teacher barked, "What are you all looking at? Get back to your seats." Professor Ali, is this how you teach? Why is everyone rushing into our classroom? The students panicked and scrambled to stand at attention. In their rush to hide, they all let go of me at once. Thud. Wait, I was still midair when they bailed on me. Those bunch of bastards. I was still hanging in the air for a split second before I hit the floor. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. What a pathetic display this was. How did my grand return turn into a literal circus act? Then, I saw her, Fanny. Lon rushed over to help me up, her eyes brimming with tears. Ping, she sobbed. You're finally cured. As the room went quiet, every single eye fixed on me, waiting for answers. I stood firm and kept my cool, while everyone else was shaking with curiosity. I remember it clearly. It was a dark and stormy night. I ran into a mysterious old man who told me, "Young man, I can see that you are a genius unlike any other in this world. In all of history, the world despises him." Everyone shut up, Master Bei shouted while writing on the chalkboard as the students from other classes retreated. They headed back to their own lessons, and the crowd finally thinned out. The mob dispersed, and I let out a massive sigh of relief. Master Bai fixed his gaze directly on me. Ping, come with me. The rest of you, study on your own. If anyone speaks, I'll train you to death tomorrow. The entire classroom fell into a deathly silence. I knew he was going to grill me for answers. I couldn't hide my progress anymore if I wanted to enter the main house. I want resources. I want to cultivate out in the open, and I have to live up to the name of Giant Pain. It was a quiet walk down the hallway. Master Bai suddenly stopped and turned to me. Go to the director's office. He doesn't believe you were just cured. Knock, knock, knock. Come in, said the white-haired director, busy reading Frontline reports. Causing trouble again, are we? The director scolded me immediately, but I didn't flinch. Master Bai nodded and stepped forward. Director, Giant Pain can finally cultivate. The director's eyes widened. I can't be certain yet. Take a look for yourself. The director dropped his reports and stood up. He moved with a sudden, sharp intensity. Master Bai repeated, it's just as I said. I met the director's burning gaze head on. Last week, when I saw you, I drank the spirit blood you gave me. I fell asleep and woke up cured. Was there something special about it? The director's jaw dropped. Just like that, he asked. I stammered a yes, not daring to tell him the real truth. That eating the meat of demonic beasts was making me stronger. No one would believe it, and some things are better left unexplained. Secrets are often more dangerous than being a weakling. The director paused to reflect. Then he reached out and grabbed the phone. His voice turned dead serious. Hey, about last time. Where did you get that demonic spirit blood you gave me? On the other end was his son, a member of the Special Operations Squad. He sounded dazed to be receiving such a sudden call. The old director hung up the phone and turned back to me. He suddenly grinned, pointing a finger at me like I was a lucky little rascal. You finally made it just in time. My son secured that vital fluid from a certain department. He gave it to me as a gift, but I didn't have any use for it. He wanted me to pass it to you. I heard it was the vital fluid of the Prince Zhou. I only found out the details later myself. If I'd known it was Prince Zhou's vital fluid, I definitely would have hesitated. My eyes went wide as I realized I had accidentally made it all up. That vital fluid, according to my own tongue, which has tasted countless spirit fluids, it wasn't actually anything special at all. Master Bai looked just as shocked as I was. What, Prince Zhou's vital fluid, and you were willing to give it to this kid? The old director didn't seem to care that he'd just handed over a treasure. Who could have guessed it was Prince Zhou's vital fluid? He muttered. He blamed his son for not being clear about the source. He thought it was just a supplement for his old bones, but I was the one who got lucky. He turned to Master Bai and said, You've done well, now that we know the truth. However, get back to class, and since this kid punched 5 holes in the board, make him pay for it. I stared at him, thinking, Director, don't be stingy. This school is huge. Do you really care about a board? Besides, I didn't do it on purpose. Everyone was mocking me and calling me a liar. The old director snorted with pure disdain. Mocking you? Please. Everyone knows you're the scam artist. How else did you earn the title of Nanshan's educational embarrassment? I immediately backed down, unable to find a single word to refute that. I followed Master Bai out of the office in silence. Once we were outside, I leaned in and asked, Master Bai, in a low voice. He's not actually going to make me pay for the repairs, is he? Master Bai's lips curled into a smirk. That depends on your performance. Come on, kid, let's head to the gym. I want to see what kind of talent you're really hiding. What exactly is going on here? Is Shuwan's blood really that magical? Demonic beast blood? At a high level, it shouldn't have been a problem, but in the hands of ordinary cultivators, someone could reach the spirit realm overnight. Master Bai couldn't help but lick his lips in anticipation. Maybe we should find the old brothers and try to get some of that blood too. He reached up and touched the scar at the corner of his eye. The moment we left, the smile vanished from the old director's face. He didn't hesitate to pick up his private line. Hello, this is Emotsuni. Xiao Wang, I don't care how you do it. I need a student's file brought to this school immediately. Without level A permission, no one is allowed to look at it. The person on the other end of the line sounded shocked. Master, please don't cause any trouble. I'm not the one causing trouble. This situation is forcing my hand. I can't afford to make any mistakes. And don't you dare talk to me about mistakes. The old director's voice rose to a roar. Did you make fewer mistakes when you were starting out? If I hadn't spent years cleaning up your messes, would you even be where you are today? Now you're just putting on an act. He let out a dry laugh. Master, I give in. Tell me how you want it done. You're the boss. Worst case scenario, I quit this job and head to the front lines. The old director smiled, knowing level A permission was finally active. The problem was my elementary school file and its forward physical exam result. Body of absolute isolation, meaning no energy could ever enter my body. I was labeled a non-cultivator for life, but I remembered that people with a body of absolute isolation possess brains that are incredibly sharp. The current system of guidance techniques was created by a man with my same condition. To some, that man is a god, and that's why the director favored me. Fine, master, I'll do it, the voice on the phone sighed. But if you make me do this again, I'm jumping out a window, you old devil. The director hung up without a word. If you won't do it, I have plenty of other students who will. The phone rang again, and a young man in a black and blue uniform appeared. He looked completely stunned. Dad, I heard what you said on the phone. What the hell is Shawan's blood? The old director cut him off immediately. Come back when you have time and we'll talk, he said, hanging up on the old man. I was in the combat training room with my instructor. He watched me closely as I swung my arms with pure excitement. Blood chi surged through the fingers of my left hand, then my right. The energy felt as thick as stalks of wheat during the test. I struck the testing stone, and it let out a dull, heavy thud. The impact sent shockwaves through the surrounding branches. Professor Bai, is this chi release? Did I actually do it? Professor Bai's jaw dropped in complete disbelief. Just last year, I didn't even know what chi was. Now, I was projecting it outside of my own body to attack. This was the mid-tier initiation stage, 3 times higher than the entry realm. My spirit was far beyond anything normal. Professor, would you say I'm a genius? How long did it take you to master this? The corner of Professor Bai's mouth began to twitch. I could tell he wanted to slap me, but he had to maintain his image. He had to act like the perfect, exemplary master. He coughed softly and said, Giant Pain, your speed is decent for someone your age. But compared to me, or the director's son who taught himself, you still have a long way to go. My eyes widened as I looked at him. I believed him. Well, mostly. I decided I would just have to keep pushing myself harder. I asked, Professor, I read that chi color is linked to attributes. Yellow for earth, red for fire. Does that mean mine is a fire attribute? Professor Bai just stood there. He rubbed his face and muttered, Get the hell out of here. but my chi is blood red. What does that have to do with leaving? I fell silent for a moment, wondering what my power actually was. Could it be that all the refined blood I've consumed since I was a child gave me a blood attribute instead? The textbooks didn't mention anything like that. Professor Bai thought for a moment, trying to look at it scientifically. He seemed to think my theory actually made some sense. What you're saying might actually be correct, he admitted. But honestly, I don't fully understand this myself. Once you enter the academy, maybe someone there will have the answer. We stayed in the training room for the rest of the afternoon. I learned how to guide my chi and manifest the upright claws. Blood-colored claws, sharp as war armor, sprouted from the back of my hand. They can attack directly, and they can even be projected outward. I stood there, staring at them in total shock. Why does this power look more sinister every time? I brushed the thought aside and focused on the Night Annihilator dog. I didn't dare mention it to the professor because I can't explain where the ID plate came from. Clearly, this is a power I'll have to develop slowly on my own. But I'm confident, one step at a time, starting with mastering these iron-tail wolf claws. I'll worry about the Night Annihilator dog later. It wasn't too much to handle. By late afternoon, my stomach growled, so I said my goodbyes to Professor Bai. I headed back to the classroom. The cheers and nonstop questions from my classmates were deafening. It was finally time to leave. I told them to stop messing around and just let me through. Are they seriously still trying to annoy me? Then, I looked through the window. Outside the door stood Lee Simo, radiating a cold, murderous aura as he glared at me. He thinks Giant Pain is nothing more than a basic spirit realm cultivator. He muttered to himself, give me 20 days. I will definitely catch up to you and make you pay. I'm actually excited to see you lose. What excuse will you have for me then? As long as I defeat you fairly, everything will return to the way it was. I'll be the top dog of this school again. I managed to slip away before my classmates saw me again. If they catch me, they'll just keep asking if I have plans. And I do have things to do, like that children's book for my little brother. He's been waiting so long, and I can't delay it any further. It's time for me to make my escape. By the time I headed home, it was already dark, nearly 8 p.m. Before, I never would have dared to be out this late. But now that I'm in the spirit realm, I feel a lot braver. I threw on my backpack and suddenly stopped. I slapped my own forehead. I'm so stupid, I thought. I actually have cultivation now. If I channel my energy into my feet, this short little wall should be nothing for me to clear. I spat on my palms and rubbed them together with a grin. I felt the energy surge and swirl around my legs. I could feel the power building. It was actually working. I pushed off with a sudden burst of strength, launching off the ground like a bullet. I landed firmly inside the courtyard wall. I actually did it. This time, I really succeeded. This cultivation stuff is incredible. It's almost fun. I rubbed my hands together in excitement. Thanks for watching the video. I stepped quietly into the room. Then, I heard Yao Yujia's voice. My good son, where do you think you're going? I looked up toward the sound. I saw Mom and Aikin, but their eyes were bloodshot and swollen. They had clearly been crying. Mom, have you eaten yet? I asked. Yao Yujia let out a frustrated laugh, unable to hold back her emotions anymore. Son, is it true? Are you really cured of your condition? I tried to act indifferent, like it was no big deal. I'm cured. I'm really cured. The principal already told you, didn't he? She reached out and gave me a sharp smack. You brat, you're cured and you didn't tell us? If the principal hadn't called, how long would you have hidden this? Hee. I just laughed. I was just afraid of giving everyone false hope. Everything is fine now. Our family doesn't have to struggle anymore. Oh right, I stopped by a shop today. They said this is the newest model. Try it on. She pulled out a gift. She pulled a small bottle out of the bag. I desperately wanted to cry, but I held it back. She was being far too understanding. She's just exhausted and spending money she doesn't have while we talk in the courtyard. My father smoked in silence, listening to us with a joy he hadn't felt in years. He looked toward the crematorium and frowned slightly, asking about my plans. What do you want to do now that you're better? Dad was being so careful with his words, terrified of saying the wrong thing. But I'm sharp. I knew exactly what he was getting at the moment he spoke. I remembered my true identity, the descendant of the crematorium director. In this harmonious society, certain roles are seen as chains. The Gaokao exams require following very specific, rigid procedures. The system is complex, filled with unwritten rules you have to navigate. If you take this job, your family is locked in for 3 generations. Nobody wants it. The spiritual contamination rots your body from the inside. It's a profession people both rely on and utterly despise. I hated it because of how much it limits a person's life. It's a curse that stains the next 3 generations of your bloodline. I had been so euphoric about my breakthrough that I completely forgot. My parents were already imagining a bright, normal future for me. The next step was to ignore my identity, so I asked, Dad, what do you mean? He hesitated, then suggested he should work first to find a connection for me. He wanted to make sure I could actually get into the academy to study. He asked if I was really okay with skipping the normal Gaokao exams. I didn't want him to worry, so I gave him a wide, toothy grin and said I had no objections. I told him, whatever you decide is fine with me. But my mother, Yao Yu, still looked incredibly uncomfortable. Her son had finally recovered, yet he couldn't go to school normally because of their burden. She suggested, why don't you ask the old director? Maybe there's a way. My father's eyes lit up at the suggestion. He didn't waste a second and quickly dialed the number. When he explained the situation, the old director started screaming and insulting him through the phone. He called my father an ambitious brat and said he should have beaten him years ago. He yelled, "You have no future, and that's it. You still want to drag Giant Pain down with you." The old man shouted that working at the crematorium was still a service to the nation's billions. He claimed those unwritten rules were things no one would ever dare say out loud. He told my father not to worry and that he would handle these messy details himself. Then he demanded, "Where's Giant Pain? Put him on the phone right now." My father was scolded so hard he couldn't even lift his head to look at me. My mother quickly grabbed the phone when she heard how badly her husband was being treated. My mother took a deep breath and spoke into the phone. "Professor, it's Xiaojin. How has your health been lately?" I watched my father stand there like a schoolboy who'd just been caught in a lie. I couldn't help but let out a muffled chuckle at the sight. The director's voice turned much gentler the moment he heard her. "Humph. I haven't died from your husband's nonsense yet, so don't you worry about me. I'll handle the boy's enrollment. Your older sister had a case just like this. It was nearly identical. That boy went straight to the front lines to serve his country. In the end, the military gave him a formal recommendation. They sent him right to the academy, so don't worry as long as I'm around. We can't let Giant Pain fall behind, so I'll have a word with your sister later." My father was so moved that his hands began to tremble. The director snorted, "Stop that crying. I'm too old for this sentimental stuff." My father just let the tears roll down his cheeks without making a sound. They chatted for a good while longer before finally ending the call. The three of us looked at each other and shared a smile. My father shook his head, still trying to process the good news. He looked at me and said, "Giant Pain, we must never forget this kindness. Your life was saved by the combined efforts of every elder and youth in Nanshan. You must remember that at all times." I nodded, knowing the most important thing was that I was finally okay. The three of us sat down and ate a massive, hearty meal together. It felt strange and wonderful. My father even let me have a small sip of wine from his own cup. I didn't head to bed until 10 o'clock that night. Our family felt reborn today, and I collapsed onto my bed in a daze. Even though I hadn't eaten any demonic beast meat yet, I wasn't as hungry as before because I'd stuffed myself over the last few days. Skipping one special meal wasn't going to kill me. In a stable society, people have enough reserves that missing a meal or two doesn't matter. There was just one problem. I needed to find a secret base for my training. I'd also have to sneak some demonic beast carcasses home while I worked. Otherwise, how was I supposed to keep my stomach full? Lost in these scattered thoughts, I finally drifted off to sleep. Vague images began to swirl in my mind. It felt like I had returned to the mountain of 1,000 Buddhas. Every single temple there had crumbled into ruins. Only the sutra library remained standing amidst the wreckage. I was traveling through a dream. Everything felt incredibly real. This dream world even seemed to evolve on its own. Is it true that what you think about by day, you dream of by night? I followed my memories through the haze. I prepared to dive back into those strange stories I saw last time. My father had pulled me away before I could finish them, which was a damn shame. I wondered if I could keep enjoying them in this dream, so I headed back to that spot. The moment I opened the book, I heard that strange, familiar sound again. A smirk played at the corners of my mouth. Man, this is way too realistic. Even this detail was perfectly preserved. Didn't I go into the cave and see a man last time? And that absolutely stunning woman? I didn't expect her to be in the dream too. Thinking of her, I set the book down and let out a dark smile. I entered the cavern with ease and reached the inner chamber once more. I descended into the lower cave and looked around the familiar space. There it was again, the crystal sarcophagus, looking exactly like it did at Mount Qianxi. That woman was still lying there, but the sealing charm on her forehead was gone. There she was, an absolutely breathtaking woman dressed in a red wedding gown, lying silently in the crystal sarcophagus. I could vaguely see the corners of her mouth curling upward. Just a tiny bit. It startled me. Then I realized, shit, am I really getting scared inside my own dream? I'm afraid of her in reality, and now I'm afraid of her here too. I shouldn't be. I walked up boldly, leaned over, and reached out to get a closer look. I paid close attention. Seriously, this was way too real. I could even see the fine, soft hair on her skin. Are dreams really this incredible nowadays? I was deeply shaken. I leaned in even closer to observe her. I couldn't help but admire the sheer magic of the creator. How could a woman this beautiful exist? Every part of her body was perfectly proportioned. It was unbelievable. Suddenly, just as I wanted to inspect her up close, everything before me went pitch black. I snapped my eyes open. I had been jolted awake by a nightmare. I stared at the ceiling in a daze, my mind completely blank. Wasn't I just dreaming? Why did I wake up so suddenly like it was a nightmare? I checked the clock. It was already 7 a.m. Damn, what a dream. What happens next? I rubbed my stomach, feeling the hunger. I saw that the furnace was already lit and burning. It was time for Giant Pain to get up and start the day's work. I dressed quickly and ran straight to the incineration room. Dad, go get some rest for a while. I'll take over. I was focused. I was planning to steal some meat. I'd quietly stash it away and take it out later to stew it. I just didn't know what kind of demonic beast it would be today. Jin Banli looked at his sensible son and sighed, thinking I'd finally grown up. Lu Chun, you know the drill. I'm heading out to buy some breakfast. He handed me the professional deboning knife and walked out. Son, are you still drinking the lifeblood? I shook my head. I won't drink it anymore. Dad, don't worry. I'll squeeze it out. If we fill a whole bottle, we can sell it. Jin Banli laughed out loud. True. After saying that, he finally left. I looked down at the corpse lying in front of me. I searched it carefully. I was a bit disappointed, but it wasn't a big deal. It was just another iron-tailed eagle. The production rate for these things is getting a bit too high lately. My stomach let out a loud growl. I have to hurry up. First, I'll squeeze out the lifeblood. I double-check to make sure no one is around. I skin the beast in a flash. Man, I'm getting fast. I can't take my gloves off yet, not with mom and dad home. I carve out 2 pounds of the most tender meat. I wrap it in wax cloth and hide it away. Suddenly, I remember the spatial rift from that night. I smack my lips, wishing I had a rift of my own. I wouldn't have to be so damn secretive about hiding my food. I'd even have a private place to cook it. I think about the massive size of Mount Xianhua. My mouth is already watering. Suddenly, everything goes dark. What's happening? Where's my meat? My huge slab of meat is just gone, and I start to panic. There's nothing on the table and nothing on the floor. I crouch down, sweating bullets and feeling like a helpless kid. Then I see it. The mole on my wrist is twitching. My heart skips a beat. Could it be the mole? It looks just like the woman in red from that crystal coffin. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind until now. Yesterday, that woman in red didn't seem to have a mole on her face. I used to be obsessed with those old stories about cultivators. Every month, a new issue came out filled with adventures and secret realms. There was one specific story about temporal rifts. 10 years ago, a man accidentally stumbled into a secret realm. He obtained a talisman and gained total control over the rift. The big boss told him nothing could be done about it. But later on, he fell upon the enemy and defeated them. The truth was finally revealed, but that was just fiction, right? Still, could it be that I'm one of the lucky ones too? I cut another piece of meat and stare at it intensely. It absorbs instantly. The demonic beast meat just vanishes into thin air. I'm completely stunned and almost scream, thinking I'm about to strike it rich. I was just wishing for a temporal rift, and now I actually have one. God is truly on my side. I slowly close my eyes. I search through the space within the crematorium. I vanish, and when I open my eyes again, I'm back at Mount Xianhua. The ruined walls and the Kong hinge are still exactly where I left them. My heart aches so much I can barely breathe. I slap myself across the face. I deserve it for being so reckless. If I had known this place was mine, why on earth did I burn it down? I torched the mountain thinking it wasn't my problem, but now it's all mine. The happier I was watching it burn then, the more it hurts me now. I'm on the verge of tears looking at all these ruined houses that belong to me. I take a deep breath and try to calm my racing mind. The worst-case scenario is that I just have to rebuild everything from scratch. Even the big boss's temporal rift was developed slowly through hard work. I'll just have to work myself to the bone to fix this. My heart is pounding against my ribs. I look at the Kong hinge with an inexplicable sense of dread. Last night's dream felt way too real to be just a figment of my imagination. Was I really dreaming yesterday, or was that woman actually there? She called me Jinlan. What kind of name is that supposed to be? I decide it's better to stay away from the Kong hinge for now. I just need a place to live and cook. I shouldn't get too greedy. I turn around and start picking through the charred ruins. After searching for a long time, I finally find one house that's still intact. I set up some pots in the kitchen, but I feel eyes burning into my back. Wait, Mount Qianfu has completely vanished. She is still staring at her young love. I launch an attack from a standing position. 5 streaks of blood fly toward the Buddha statue. I'm being shamelessly extravagant, but what a relief. I set up a small kitchen and toss the iron-tail eagle meat inside. I start the stew, thinking back to before. Mount 1000 Buddhas used to have demonic beasts, but I haven't found any yet. This mountain isn't exactly small, either. We even have a group of students here who studied at the University of Badajoz. I'm starving, so I have to suppress my hunger for now. I push my doubts aside and focus on stewing the meat. The aroma fills the air as the meat cooks through. After a hearty meal, I feel completely refreshed. My upright claw feels significantly stronger too. The power of the upright claw has increased once again. With a flick of my wrist, I realize my control is much more stable. I have to make the most of this treasure and figure out how to reveal the demonic beast's form. I mutter a single word and step out. I reappear instantly in the workshop, back in the incineration room. I look up at the wall clock. It's 7:50, and I remember entering at 5:30. 1 hour inside, 20 minutes outside, a time ratio of 3-to-1. I didn't reveal the other iron-tail eagle I had left. I just tossed it straight into the furnace for several days. I'm tired of the iron-tail eagle. Its potential has finally hit its limit. Luckily, my focus used to last 15 minutes, but now it's reached 45. 9 is the ultimate number, and 9/4 of an hour is the peak. I'm getting close to the summit where specializing in one skill can trigger a breakthrough. This is the dividing line between the children of common families and the heirs of the great clans. The gap between us starts right here. Innate skill is etched into the very bones. It stays with you for a lifetime. The children of the elite can use their resources early on. They use high-level demonic pills to build a powerful, compatible framework. The stronger the muscle memory, the greater the future achievements. Common people can only go to the academy and pray for a stroke of luck. The 18-year rule states high schoolers can't break through to the next realm yet, but the best demonic pills are always snatched up by the elites first. The government takes the best, and the leftovers trickle down to the market. To get the good stuff, you have to grind at the academy, but nothing there is free. I've been absorbing all this knowledge lately, and I finally understand the old director. He was dead set on me getting into that academy. Without resources from the outside, raw talent is practically useless. The best resources are locked away in the academy or the military. I need to stop getting distracted and focus on getting in. While I work, I keep thinking about this temporal rift. The heaven-devouring secret realm has a 3-to-1 time ratio. That's a lot of room to play with. But I'm not like normal people. I don't need to spend years polishing my skills. As long as I have enough demonic beast corpses, my proficiency will skyrocket on its own. Wait, my eyes light up as I realize something else. I think I just found another use for this place. I let out a sly grin. If this idea actually works, it'll be legendary. Meanwhile, the old director is furious on the phone, screaming at Juinshio for failing his own nephew. On the other end, Juinshio smiles bitterly, explaining that these orders came from the very top. Juinshio sits behind his desk in a crisp military uniform, looking every bit the high-ranking officer. He rubs his forehead, trying to handle the old master's temper tantrum. They only see me as a useless old man now, the director barks. After all these years, they deny me this? The old director sighs, sounding truly heartbroken, and Juinshio can only listen in silence. Juinshio doesn't know whether to laugh or cry as he listens to the old master rant. He remembers how the director used to bow and scrape just to get his students ahead. Juinshio grits his teeth, finally making a difficult decision. Master, he says, there might be another way, but I'll have to pull some strings. The old director finally smiles and says, I knew I could count on my best disciple. Juinshio looks at the documents on his desk and asks, have you heard of the fire seed competition? The director nearly jumps out of his seat, shouting that Giant Pain would be better off just killing beasts. Juinshio explains that the competition is a bloodbath where geniuses kill each other to become seeds. If Giant Pain qualifies as a reserve seed, he gets into the academy, and Juinshio can pull him out before the real fighting starts. The director falls silent, realizing this path is much safer than the actual front lines. Juinshio wants to argue, but looking at his old mentor, he just nods and says it won't be a problem. Fine, the director says, this path works. I think we can do it. Juinshio tells him to bring Giant Pain to the third realm immediately for the selection trials. The third realm is a war zone, currently facing 10 active star rifts. Juinshio notes that the higher-ups believe a fire seed must be ready to burn on the front lines. The director looks at Juinshio deeply, admitting he can only rely on his former students now. Juinshio nods firmly, promising the old man that he will take care of everything for the boy. Back at school, I'm buried in my notes, desperately trying to catch up on years of missed cultivation theory. Suddenly, Ms. Bai walks in and calls out, Giant Pain, come with me for a moment. The entire class stops what they're doing and stares right at me. Brother Pin, are you in trouble again? I rolled my eyes and told them to get lost. The whole group burst out laughing, assuming I'd messed up like usual. But the next day, I didn't show up for class. Xiaowan frowned, wondering if I'd been beaten so badly I couldn't walk. Everyone in the room started whispering and wondering where I was. Brother Pin isn't coming back to cultivate here anymore. Fanlon stood up from her seat. She spoke with a calm, steady voice. Don't worry about him. He has his own path to follow now. The class erupted into chaos at her words. What? Brother Pin isn't going to the academy. Sister Lon, tell us what's happening to him. The student with glasses told everyone to shut up and listen to her. My family works at a crematorium. You all know that, she said calmly. The entire room fell into a heavy silence. Someone whispered, does that mean we won't get to see him anymore? Fanlon rolled her eyes at the person who spoke. I said we'll meet at the academy, so you better work hard. I've gone off to fight, and none of you can afford to fall behind. He said he's definitely going to the academy, and he'll be waiting for you there. Xiaowan scoffed. Falling behind? Does he really think he can look down on us? Exactly. Brother Pin has gotten way too cocky lately. Wait, the academy. If he's going, then we're getting in there too. I've always had this natural aura of leadership. Whether people are agreeing or fighting, I'm the one who fixes it. They spoil me for it, but right now, I was just hoisting my backpack and following the old director. I waved goodbye to my parents. Yao Yujin had tears in her eyes as she asked, Professor, is it really safe? The old director, Hyunbin, took a step forward. His serious voice boomed. Danger? All you ever talk about is danger. There is no safe place in this world. Pin has his own path, so don't hold him back. Wu Yujing didn't dare say another word. I thought, Giant Pain is the only one who argues with the professor, so why are you hitting me? The old director snapped back immediately. She's your wife. Who else am I supposed to hit if I don't hit you? I almost burst out laughing at the sight. I looked at them both with pure, playful contempt. He whispered in my ear, Kid, don't cause trouble out there. You're a big shot in Nanshan, but there's always someone bigger. Yao Yujin grabbed my hand and repeated the same warning over and over. The old director curled his lip, thinking I'd already made enough of a name for myself to ever be discreet. Suddenly, a sharp cry pierced the sky as a massive, 30-foot bird descended toward us. Its beak looked as sharp and lethal as a jagged arrow. The wind from its wings whipped against us like a physical blade. A man dressed in black stepped off and called out, I'm from Group Chun, here to collect the Spark contestants. Which one is Giant Pain? His eyes locked onto mine. The old director smiled and asked, So you've grown up, kid. Are you following Hunshio now? The man scratched his head sheepishly. Director, I graduated years ago with nothing, but Group Chin took me in and let me pilot this black-winged falcon. The old director reached out and gave him a firm pat on the shoulder. Do your best, he said. I remember your specialty. It looks like you finally found the right place for it. The man's face lit up with pure excitement. Director, I promise I won't let you down. I stood there, completely stunned. I finally realized that the director having students all over the world wasn't just a boast, it was the truth. Giant Pain nudged me and said, learn well, the professor is a legend, so stop making him angry. I nodded solemnly and replied, I'll try. But then I saw that familiar, murderous glint return to the old man's eyes. I changed my mind instantly. I promise, I shouted, but the old director just barked at me to stop being so indecisive. Go on, follow your senior brother, he commanded. In my head, I was reeling. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I had just gained a powerful senior brother, and honestly, it felt amazing. Goodbye, director, I called out. I said a quick farewell to my parents and ran toward the beast. I headed straight for the massive bird. Hello, I'm Giant Pain, but you can call me Pinsy. I introduced myself. The man smiled and said, we're all family here, kid, no need for the formalities. I looked back at the old director and said, I'm heading out then, and he gave a silent nod. I was just about to climb onto the dark red falcon's back. Suddenly, he shouted, wait, and rushed over to me. He pulled a crumpled notebook from his pocket and flipped through the pages. He paused for a second, searching for something specific. Take this and keep it with you, he said, handing it over. If you run into trouble you can't handle out there, call these people. Giant Pain's face looked like it was about to explode as he stammered. Master, you're giving him that. The old director snapped at him. Shut up, it's not your turn to talk. Giant Pain stood there, unable to believe what he was witnessing. Yao Yujing tried to stop him. He knew exactly what that list represented and had his own selfish reasons for wanting it. But he knew better than to open his mouth, so I just took the paper. I stared at the names, burning them into my memory. The dark red falcon took flight, and suddenly, everything felt calm. I looked at the man beside me and asked, Senior, that chi shield is amazing. Can you teach me? By the way, I added, what's your name? He gave a small smile and said, I'm Jian Nan, Chunju's backup driver. You call this a shield? You'll learn the basics once you enter the academy. But only those in the wrong realm have the right to actually practice it. I clicked my tongue in awe. I was finally seeing the world for the first time. Senior, you're this incredible, and you're only a backup driver? I asked. Jian Nan smiled, looking at me like he was seeing his younger self. Of course, I'm just a substitute. Do you have any idea what the cost is? To be the exclusive driver for the Qin family? He gestured toward the massive bird beneath us. This beast is a king-level descendant, he explained. My jaw hit the floor. A king-level creature, just for transport? Even without knowing much about cultivation, I knew exactly how insane that was. Demonic beasts can be seen everywhere, in the sky and across the land. You can kill them or tame them, but Jian Nan said they usually have to be raised from birth. And you need secret methods to do it right. That's why mounts exist, soaring through the clouds or roaming the earth. They come in all strange shapes and sizes, and now I finally had the chance to see one. Apparently, the best ones are exclusive to the Golden Eagle clan. Common birds like the iron-tailed eagle aren't even worthy of being mentioned. The books say a scarlet-black eagle's combat power at adulthood is only entry-level. Spirit level, profound level, king level, each step is an abyss, and this is a king-level descendant. I stared at Jian Nan, realizing for the first time just how narrow my vision had been. I wanted one too, just the thought of it felt powerful. Jian Nan smiled and said, then you'll have to work hard though. The old principal clearly thinks very highly of you. That notebook of his is a total myth back at South City High. I frowned and asked, what do you mean? Everyone says no one actually knows who those people are, he replied. The people whose numbers are written in that book, I mean. When I was admitted to the Kunshin Academy, the old principal dialed a random number. He asked someone to look after me, and at the time, I felt insulted. But once I arrived, I realized he had handed me a golden ticket. He called the man in charge of selecting the demonic beasts. Only then was I finally treated like a real human being. I watched the scarlet-black eagle soar through the sky. Jian Nan's face was full of nostalgia and raw emotion. Without that call, I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't have even been able to knock on the door. Do you realize the weight of that page now? I didn't expect the old man to have that much pull. I pressed a hand to my chest, feeling a surge of warmth. I couldn't let the old principal down. We flew at incredible speeds, but the journey still took a full day and night. Finally, the scarlet-black eagle crossed the city limits of Tlalpan. My eyes went wide as the city came into view. I asked, Big brother, is that it? This is GIE, he replied. We fly for 1 more hour to reach the headquarters of the 3rd jail. That's where your selection will take place. Once we landed, I followed Jian Nan and waited for nightfall. He needed time to get the scarlet-black eagle settled into its stable. We moved away from the crowded tribal district. We wove through streets and alleys, occasionally stopped by patrols. Finally, we stopped in front of a 5-story building. He swiped the access card. The scanner cleared him, and we stepped into the lobby. Jian Nan pressed the button for the elevator. He asked if I even knew what an elevator was, since few people in this society understand technology. I just gave him a silly grin, though I'd seen them in books, and looked around like a curious child. The elevator lurched and dropped 23 floors into a room buzzing with activity. A massive, rare screen flickered with constant streams of data. Phones rang incessantly as men and women in black uniforms hurried back and forth. Jian Nin stepped forward to report our arrival. A mature, elegant woman looked up from her desk. Jian Nin gave a formal report, addressing her as Shin Hunshu. Shin Hunshu raised her head with the poise of a noblewoman and examined me, asking, "So, you're Xiao Pinzi?" She looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. She seemed to read the confusion in my heart. With a wave of her hand, she dismissed Jian Nan. She stood up with a smile and asked, "Have you forgotten me since you were a child?" She mentioned how sweet I used to be, and suddenly, my memories exploded. My eyes went wide, and I blurted out, "Your Auntie Xiangxiang." She laughed out loud, remembering the wine from back then. Back when the government of the Republic of Mexico was still a part of daily life. Back then, I was practically starving to death. She had sent 3 bottles of golden marrow to the Church of San Juan, and the fragrance was divine. Those 3 bottles kept me a third of the way full for a month, a rare, beautiful memory. "I didn't expect you to still remember that, Xiao Pinzi," she said, her voice warm. "In 3 days, geniuses from all over the world will gather to compete for the top 16 spots. The competition is dangerous, so if you're afraid, I can make other arrangements." She offered to find me a sponsor instead of making me fight for a ranking. "To me, you'll always be that little boy, do you understand?" I fell silent, processing her words. I looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Auntie, tell me, what do you want me to do?" I knew my reputation, the little tyrant of Nansen, high IQ, but ruthless methods. She wasn't a fool. By saying that, she was testing if I wanted to take the easy way out. She smiled and said, "It's not about what I want, it's about what you want for your own path." Initially, I intended to just follow my master's arrangements. But seeing her made me realize I couldn't be raised like a flower in a greenhouse. Sure, I could probably secure a spot in the top 16 with a simple recommendation. Relying on connections to enter the academy would guarantee a decent future. But if I did that, I'd be ruined as a cultivator. She watched me, sensing a spark of spirit and energy she hadn't seen in a long time. I had heard she had become a powerful leader, and now I saw why. I used to only practice the most basic skills. The Rift Claw is already my strongest move, but reaching this level took everything I had. I've worked harder than any ordinary person, and a kid like that would be ruined by an easy path. She saw the look in my eyes and changed her mind, deciding to let me try my way. I was already at the 7th level, far surpassing anyone my age. But what did that actually mean? Compared to my peers, I wasn't inferior to even the descendants of the great clans. My talent was extraordinary enough to make even a master want to protect it. If my evaluation went well, I could take it a step further, maybe even enter the realm of glory. With a foundation in the realm of glory, I could secure a top-tier spot far better than just entering the academy. I didn't even have to be the absolute best, as long as I stayed in the top 8. She would have every reason to help me secure a prestigious, original title. The starting point for my future would be completely different, but she kept these thoughts to herself. The key was seeing what I would choose for myself. And I didn't disappoint her. "Good," she said with a smile. "Since you've chosen, then welcome the challenge. Andy believes in you, so go for it." She stood up and gave me a firm pat on the shoulder. I nodded back, my resolve hardening. Just watch me. I refuse to believe I'm any worse than the rest of them. Even though I accept the arrangements, I'm not just some pawn. I refuse to be a family member who lacks a spark of fighting spirit. I heard that everyone competing is around my age. I want to see who's truly the strongest among us. She saw the burning battle intent in my eyes. It made her look even more satisfied with my choice. I'll head down and wait for the first elimination round in 3 days. For those 3 days, I'll wait obediently and prepare. And if I get hungry, I'll head to the heaven-devouring secret realm for some iron-tail eagle stew. My condition improved immediately, reaching near perfection. But eating iron-tail eagle only fills me up and slightly boosts my skill mastery. It can't effectively promote my growth anymore. It's not completely useless, it's just far too slow. Before, eating 2 was enough, but now it barely makes a dent. I'm worried. What will I eat next to keep growing? I can't make a bold promise and then fail immediately, so I asked Jiangnan for help. I had him get me the 3rd edition of the Bestiary of Demonic Beasts. I need to find spirit realm creatures to sustain my independent skills. Otherwise, what's the point of training this hard? Plucking feathers isn't enough anymore. I have so many feathers from those spirit realm creatures that I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Finally, I made my choice and selected a new target. The Wind-Chasing Wolf, a spirit realm beast with its signature Bloodblade skill. Activating it grants a 30% speed boost, so I'm putting it at the top of my list. This skill offers sustainable gains that could benefit the entire community. A 30% buff is massive support, but I have one small problem. I heard the Wind-Chasing Wolf's inner core can grant even more abilities, so I went to ask my aunt. I approached Chinjuanxiu, but she just stepped aside. She tucked a lock of hair behind her ear and gave me a knowing smile. The Wind-Chasing Wolf is a good choice, and the first round is in an army-controlled rift where they roam. I couldn't help but let out a small smirk. So, what exactly is the format for this elimination round? She just waved her hand, shooing me away like a nuisance. If you're done here, get out of my pill room and go mingle with the other competitors. I stood there, completely dumbfounded, because I actually liked it in the pill room. She curled her lips into a faint smile and impatiently turned back to her work. She buried her head in her documents to keep the details of the trial a secret. The specifics of the exam haven't been officially announced yet, but I already know that the rift she mentioned is the perfect place for me. As long as I don't lose my way, I'll be just fine. The wind-chasing wolf skill depends on luck. Some need 10 cores to get it, but I've made my choice. She marked the name down on the list. Suddenly, a woman in a black uniform named Yao Lin walked in and called for Shinzu. It was time to seal the deal. I understood what was happening immediately. This was the exam. The evaluation process had officially begun. I started preparing for the Wild Wolf Rift and clutched my blanket tight. I headed back to a ruined school building that served as a dormitory. Just as I reached the door, I heard a voice calling for young Master Lu. Apparently, the competitors this time are all elites from the 13 cities, 300 geniuses below the Ron realm, but they say Lu is the #1 talent of Heavy City. They're convinced he'll definitely sweep the competition. I chuckled to myself. The classic villain aura had finally arrived. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard a furious roar from inside. They were cursing my name, Giant Pain, calling me bad luck. I turned around with a smirk and said, "Wow, young Master Li, what a coincidence." Lizzie was trembling with pure excitement. He couldn't cut it at school and got shipped off to Madrid University, all the way down to the southern city. His sister kept him on a short leash, but now he's used his connections to get in. He spends his days fantasizing about being a real man, dreaming of being a living warrior, slaughtering everyone he sees on TV. Just the thought of seeing my face twisted in despair makes him feel alive. And right now, he's feeling better than ever, because he finally laid eyes on me. Heaven has a path you ignored, and hell has no gate, yet here you are, he sneered. This isn't the southern city, and Don Fanlon isn't here to back you up. You're dead. He made a slow cutting motion across his throat. I looked him dead in the eye and thought, I'd love to see you try. Careful, young Master Li, I said. Talk that big, and you might just trip and crush your own balls. But thanks for the warning. His face flushed with pure frustration. Don't worry, I won't use my family name to crush you, he spat. I'll beat you for real. His arrogance was absolutely off the charts. People nearby started poking their heads out to see the commotion. Isn't that the Li family heir? They whispered. Why is he acting like such a coward? Lu Baichuan poked his head out too, laughing coldly at the useless display. Great, another one. Li Simo narrowed his eyes the moment he saw him. So you're here too, he spat. Old enemies always find each other. He and Lu Baichuan had clashed once before during the league matches. It was a grudge that never quite settled. Things were starting to get ugly. If they both went at it, everyone was going to suffer. Lu Baichuan stepped forward and sneered. What are you even planning to do? You're a loser, Li. Why are you acting like you're someone important? He turned to me and said, don't worry, friend. I've got your back. What can he even do to you? I looked at the two of them and thought, how childish. But I just said, thanks. Honestly, I didn't need his help. I didn't give a damn about an insignificant brat like Li Simo. Lu Baichuan's face went dark. He wanted to use me as a tool to annoy his rival. But my indifference stung him, and he looked like he wanted to kill me right there. He started showing off, reminding everyone he was a top expert from the 5 nearby colleges. The guy was being way too arrogant for his own good. The crowd started getting rowdy, feeding off his attitude. He really thought he was the king of the 5 faculties. At this age, everything depends on talent. And clearly, he thought he had it all. It's great. But there are always people who will look down on you. A girl with short hair turned around and walked away. A guy in a white shirt flashed a smirk and left too. They were gone. He's overbearing, and I think he has potential, but we can't force it. Not just anyone can get in here. A subordinate smiled. He looked pleased with himself. This group of people is giving me a massive headache. They're even more pretentious than I am. Forget it. Thanks for the kindness. But I'm here to compete, not join a gang. It's better if we all just stay peaceful. I pushed forward. I grabbed the door handle. Lu Baichuan reached out his hand to stop me. I didn't budge. His eyes narrowed, and he flashed a fake, childish smile. Fine. The fight didn't start yet, but the camera caught everything. Shun Hunshu watched with a smile, thinking, this brat has some skill, strength, and he can actually control his temper. Not bad. Character is more important than talent. I'm keeping my eye on him. The old man smiled. Is Junsu actually interested in someone? Look at that. That's what he says. You can't see it now. You have to watch the performance. The old man refused to commit to an opinion. That night, Lu Baichuan's lackeys were constantly trying to test me. I was busy planning how to trap the Zephyr Wolf without the supervisor noticing. I laughed to myself. Lu Baichuan thought he was making a point. Giant Pain, talent isn't everything. Resources matter too. I just smirked and thanked him, but I wasn't budging. He let out a sharp snort. He told me my temper would bring me trouble sooner or later. My contact already knew my cultivation level was high. That's exactly why he recruited me, and everyone there knew it. But I didn't give him the satisfaction of a reaction. Right now, the only thing that mattered was eating and surviving. Nothing Lu Baichuan said interested me in the slightest. The first elimination round finally began. A group of us followed the men in black uniforms into the rift space. I'd be spending an entire day killing demonic beasts surrounded by these kids. The warning was clear. Quiet. Don't cheat, or you'll never be hired. They handed out a motorcycle to each of us. With that, the crowd dispersed. The so-called prodigies looked completely baffled. The whole setup seemed way too careless. But I knew better. The cameras were watching everything. They were hidden everywhere. With cameras watching, moving freely wouldn't be easy, but I'd find a way. I was the first to dive into the wasteland to hunt the wolves lurking in the thickets. I hopped onto the motorcycle and sped off. The rest of the group scattered instantly. 15 minutes later, I reached a dense patch of brush. My nose twitched. I could smell a dangerous aura coming from inside. I hid the bike out of sight. Then, I slowly unsheathed my longsword. I crouched low as a glint of sunlight caught the lens of a camera. So that's why they're so confident. They're monitoring every move from the control room. Inside that room, Chen Hunshu and his team were gathered. They were busy observing and recording every single detail. One of them noted, "Good, he's capable of sensing danger." They updated my data, noting my heightened sense of smell. Even my subtlest movements were being analyzed by the elders. Chen Hunshu watched me closely and muttered, "You're an interesting one." Chen Hunshu smiled and replied, "This is all thanks to your excellent teaching." I wasn't in a hurry to enter the brush. First, I counted 80 cameras. In a grove like this, there wouldn't be more than 10 wolves. They actually installed 86 cameras. The corner of my mouth twitched at the sight. This is overkill, and it's giving me a massive headache. With this many eyes on me, how am I supposed to kill without being exposed? I frowned and stood my ground, hesitating to move forward. Was I afraid, or just calculating my next move? 10 minutes later, a plan finally started to take shape. I picked up a stone, notched it with my blade, and hurled it violently into the brush. A sharp howl echoed through the trees. A massive wolf came charging out, and my eyes lit up as I let out a laugh. Facing a 3-meter-tall beast, I didn't retreat to escape. I did it to lure him out. I wanted to kill him slowly, on my own terms. I kept moving, hopped back on the bike, and pinned the throttle. The engine roared as I sped deeper into the thicket. The command center lost their clear view. They were completely blinded. But I didn't stop there. I pulled up just long enough to taunt the beast with a wave of my hand. The wolf snarled and lunged at me with everything it had. I kicked the accelerator to maximum power. I flew across the dirt, leaving the beast in the dust. And in the process, I woke up another one. In an instant, 2 of them were right on my tail. I chuckled as they chased me, continuing to provoke them and cause chaos. I did it over and over until a dozen wolves were in tow, dangling right behind me like a deadly parade. My skill, Little Moon Dog, detected another unknown pack, so I repeated the trick. An hour later, I had over 50 Zephyr wolves howling at my back. Back at the command center, everyone was absolutely stunned. What on earth is this kid trying to do? He has no mana. Is he just waiting to die? He's insane. The recorder couldn't analyze my movements, and Chun Juanxiu shouted, "Send someone to stop him." There are blind spots out there, and Chun knew the cameras were sparse outside the exam area. If something goes wrong, we won't be able to save him. Jian Nin left immediately to handle the situation. Even he was starting to feel a bit anxious for me. "Don't actually go and get yourself killed, kid." I watched the pack through my peripheral vision. There were 70 or 80 wolves in pursuit now. I was filled with excitement, watching them drool as they closed in. There are almost no cameras left in this sector, so I'm getting bolder. I began to slow down, letting the fastest wolf almost reach me. I looked back at the lead wolf with a dark smile and thought, "Come here, little guy." I reached out and touched the red bracelet on my wrist. Just like that, the massive wolf vanished into thin air. It was incredible. The rest of the pack skidded to a halt, completely bewildered. Where did their massive hunting partner go? I chose this spot on purpose. The nearest camera is 800 meters away and facing the other side. 2 more confused wolves lunged forward. I seized the opportunity as I kept moving. They suddenly disappeared into my storage, just like the first. The first wave was gone. I was panting, watching the remaining wolves salivate while I licked my lips in satisfaction. This isn't as easy as it looks. I have to make physical contact to absorb them. The heaven-devouring realm isn't omnipotent, and I can't risk this against enemies I can't handle. But once they're in my pod, eating them is only a matter of time. I took out 6 more in a row before I decided to change my tactics. I hopped back on my bike and gunned the engine. I can't stay in one place for too long. It's way too dangerous. It's too easy to get caught, so I'll lure another group and absorb them elsewhere. If I kill them one by one under the cameras, I'll never finish this exam. If I want a high yield, I have to take high risks. I need to provoke an entire pack into chasing me. It won't matter if a few of them go missing from the group. I spent the entire day on the move. The fuel tank is still holding up well enough for this run. I can probably cover another 300 kilometers. I've already lured about 50 or 60 wolves into following me. The wind howls behind me as I exit the surveillance zone to harvest them. I managed to snatch another 7 or 8 in the blind spot. Up in the monitoring station, Jianan stares at the screen. He looks absolutely stunned to see that I'm still alive. I could practically see his mood souring through the camera lens. As soon as I reached the next checkpoint, I changed my approach. I stopped just absorbing them and drew my real blades and weapons. I took down the first wolf with a few precise, brutal slashes. I sliced off the ears, ripped out the core, and tossed the carcass aside. I kicked the bike back to life and sped off, leaving Jianan speechless. He muttered to himself, "Wow, can he really play the game like that?" He sees it clearly now. I'm strong, and the wolves are completely exhausted. Their speed has dropped by 40% compared to when the chase started. This method looks dangerous, but the rewards are massive. The bike eats up their stamina while I just sit back. The wolves chase me until they're completely out of breath. The moment they collapse, I move in for the harvest. One by one, they hit the dirt and stay there. I keep running them in circles over and over again. Honestly, this strategy is basically broken. Back at the station, Jiannan just stands there, stunned. But a thought hits me. What happens if I run out of gas? I swerve toward the bushes and come to a halt near the trees. I lean on my bike and shout, "Hey buddy, come out and let's trade." A student with his own motorcycle peeks out, looking confused. He steps out trembling, nearly in tears, and begs, "Big boss, please don't. Cut the crap and lead the pack away." I interrupt, pointing at the smoke. Everyone is hiding from a lunatic like me while I'm just trying to pass this exam. I flash a grin and say, "My bike still has 20 kilometers left in it. You take mine that way, I'll take yours this way, and we won't have any problems." The student looks ready to sob, "But boss, if I lose my bike, I'm finished." I just laugh and tell him, "If I don't trade, I don't leave. What are you gonna do?" His face turns bright red as I force him into a corner. "I've got a bike, you've got a bike, we can both run." But then I flashed a mysterious smile and thought, "Are you for real?" You can find Ewing in the video description below. In an instant, everyone started scattering back toward their homes. A medicinal pill and a burst of blood chi flew through the air. The wolf attacking from the bushes was crushed on the spot. The kid looked like 10,000 alpacas were trampling his heart as he sobbed. "Big boss, you could just rob me directly." I told him, "Taking things for free isn't right. We're classmates, we should fight together." I figured stealing too much would be bad for my future, so I let him off the hook. The smoke behind us was getting thicker, and a massive wave of beasts was coming. Anli tossed me the keys, and I swapped bikes. "The big boss is reliable. I'm not leaving yet." I smiled with satisfaction and said, "No problem. You go left, I'll go right." I told him, "By the way, keep that wolf ear as compensation." With that, he sped off like he was racing home to his wife. I looked at the bike, seeing it was full of fuel, and felt a wave of relief. Most people wouldn't ride like me, but with this much gas, I'm set. The student touched the free wolf ear and actually felt a little moved by my generosity. I hopped onto the Black Red Hawk, while Jiannan watched me and grabbed his walkie-talkie. He radioed in, "Shinju, we still have to follow him." Back in the command room, the host and the old registrar both fell into a stunned silence. This kid is absolutely out of his mind. He broke into the martial arts school in a single move. Everyone saw it. With that kind of strength, why can't he just kill efficiently instead of pulling these stunts? He's just chasing the thrill. Shin Junsu rubbed his temples in frustration. Inside, he was cursing. "Brat, this is the first time I can't predict a single thing you do." The old man smiled, noting that Hun Xiu was the one the organization had to watch over. He nodded helplessly as the master gave a greeting, and the assistant relayed the message. The old man laughed out loud, admitting the boy was good, even if his methods were bizarre. Shin Hunshu's face flushed slightly as he got up from the bed. I knew they were mocking me, but what can a parent do except clean up the mess? He quickly changed the subject to the other competitors. The registrar took notes silently, perhaps never having seen a woman like her before. He was outstanding, sure, but his personality was pure chaos. Someone wrote it down directly. "Mentally unstable, who kills like a complete fool." Now that Jiannan was gone and the attention had faded, I could finally let loose. Not to mention my brother, the Lord, who gave me the chance to speak with you. And Lissimo isn't falling behind either. He comes from a powerful family and goes straight for the objective. He caught a wolf just like I did, but he's not nearly as flashy. Now, help me boost my points, pup. Dodo only has one move left, and he's only at 30% strength. He has that big family style. Anyone can see he's a promising talent. With his skills assisting him, he caught one in no time, while KNR watched and smiled. 10 minutes in, and I was already feeling grateful for the progress. I had been training and dealing with demonic beasts for a long time now. With 10 bodyguards protecting him, he doesn't know the meaning of fear. He treats the beast like an old friend, even though a normal person would freeze at the sight of it. I followed him step by step, feeling my results grow better by the second. At the very least, things were looking up. He actually thought he could eliminate me. Lissimo smiled, but maybe he got a little too cocky. One wrong move, and he fell for the bait. 3 wolves jumped out at once, making him lose his balance. He stabilized himself and struck back, while the commander watched the whole scene. He's promising, but his style is too stiff. To reach greatness, you have to let go. A crowd was recording as Lu Baichuan stood out from Group 20. He spots his prey and goads it into attacking first. 1, 2, that's not nearly enough. I need another one. 3, 4, still not enough for what I have planned. He keeps goading them, pushing his luck. He hits 5 wolves, and only then does he feel his limit. Lu Baichuan has strength and courage, but he's too impulsive. 5 was fine, but 6? Just as I thought, the pressure on him doubles as another wolf closes in. Among the rest, that girl stands out. She's carrying a massive sword. A 7-foot blade on her back, slinging ice with one hand and taunting with the other. It's huge, and Lycan is already making his move. Those skills of his are vital. They are specifically designed to enhance his physical constitution. The compatibility is perfect. Someone in his family clearly knows what they're doing. What was her name? Right, Sushiangio. I watched her take on an entire pack of wolves all by herself. She's dominating them. The girl definitely has a spark of genius. Then there's the kid with the black-rimmed glasses, clearly at the 7th level of the spirit realm. He fights with unusual restraint, using minimal movement to deal maximum damage. Juga Zenji, so he's from the Juga family, which explains his calculated style. They specialize in the 18 interlocking links. They're born mathematicians. 100 flowers bloom, and 100 schools of thought compete. The elders nod in approval as they watch the different styles clash. The overall strength of this group is impressive and full of potential. If I weren't here, this beast would have been a much bigger problem for them. Strange, this evaluation should have ended perfectly by now. Instead, I'm leading a pack of monsters, tearing wildly through the desert. Wolves, bears, and ancient three-legged golden crows are all swarming. They're right behind me, the horde growing larger and spinning out of control. I've been riding for half an hour without stopping for supplies, and those wind-chasing wolves are gaining speed. They're almost close enough to sink their teeth into my bike. The sky begins to darken. The lights are blinding, and I've lost track of where I am, but the night is perfect for making a move. Every now and then, I pick a few of them off. I saw a massive bear earlier, but I didn't feel like testing my luck against that thing. So I just keep cutting through the open space. More wolves. In this region, staying up late isn't a choice. The others don't dare sleep, terrified they'll be caught off guard. They're afraid of being eliminated, while I'm wandering around, infuriating every demonic beast in sight. Finally, dawn breaks. I hide myself away in the earth-devouring secret realm. I need to stay under the radar so I don't get disqualified. Time for some meat. 3 small fangs from a spirit realm wind-chasing wolf. The meat is tough and bony, but the bones make a decent broth to boost my blood concentration. I finish it off with 80 grams of wine-fermented tofu. I toss in 10 grams of dried chilies, then 10 grams of bay leaves, letting it all simmer over a low flame. Eating this helps absorb the wind-chasing wolf's innate connection to the wind. It's tough and hard to swallow, but when you're this hungry, you make it work. I'm being picky, but I'm much stronger than I was before. The fire is roaring now, so I heat the oil and throw the wolf meat and spices into the pot. Outside, the demonic beasts are losing their minds. Wolves, tigers, and bears are all howling and roaring, searching for the man who spent all day taunting them. They're holding their breath, desperate to tear me apart to vent their rage, but I've vanished. The lifebound beasts are on the prowl. They sweep through the area wildly, their forms twisted like gnarled trees. They're everywhere, and the other examinees are absolutely miserable. They planned to hunt each other at night, but instead, they ran straight into a demonic riot. Now they're hiding in the bushes, too terrified to move or make a kill, weeping over their ruined scores. The situation was already bad, but now they're completely finished. They can only sit there, feeling utterly helpless. Chun wonders where that brat went while the beasts continue their rampage. There's no telling how many surveillance cameras have been smashed to pieces. Chun Huinshio's face is tense as he snaps. What's wrong? Are we too broke to fix this? This is supposed to be an evaluation, but the documentation on these alien monsters is a disaster. Are we just going to let the examinees suffer? Their faces are flushed with shame. Chun Huinshio is still protecting his own people as always, which is a relief. I'm glad I was born into this faction. Finally, my power is starting to increase. If they can't find me, I can finally relax. Time to eat. I ate and drank my fill, then slept in the scripture pavilion before checking my loot. 35 cubs in total. This should be enough to keep me from being eliminated, right? My aunt trusts me, so I can't let her down. I managed to capture 5 more. With the wind chasers, I've gathered 48 in total. Now, it's really time to finish this meal. The meat of the wind-chasing wolf is ready. I need to eat it while it's hot, or the wind essence will spoil. One less thing to worry about. I washed my clothes because the scent of blood was getting too strong. Then, I cautiously stepped outside. I moved through the secret realm of humanity. The pursuers were gone, and I smiled as the sky began to clear. I picked a direction and took off at full speed. Around 10 a.m., the contestants started trickling back in. Their faces were haggard. Lu Baichuan looked just as bad as the rest. This is pure garbage. I didn't get a single thing all night. I didn't even dare to move or sleep for fear of being attacked. This night was a nightmare. How did you do? Terrible. I'm probably in last place. You. Ugh, same here. I only have what I gathered during the day. I'm finished. My father will kill me if I'm eliminated in the first round. I don't know what's wrong with those demonic beasts. Why didn't they sleep at all? Listening to the chatter, Lu Baichuan and Li Zimu finally started to relax a little. If everyone failed, then their rankings wouldn't actually drop that much. They turned their eyes towards Zhu Xing and Su Tianjiao, the real rivals. The evaluation team appeared and checked the clock. Only 3 minutes left. Anyone who didn't make it back in time would be disqualified immediately. The crowd started scanning the horizon, looking for the missing faces. I noticed Zimu was looking for me, and I let out a cold, internal smirk. He's still not back, they whispered. He's probably not coming. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a blade. Even Lu Baichuan looked completely lost as he stared into the distance. On paper, my strength wasn't bad, so they couldn't understand why I was missing. 1 minute left on the clock. Just as they were about to announce the cutoff, a massive commotion broke out. A young man came flying in at top speed, skidding to a halt before leaping forward. It was me. I had made it back to civilization just in time. Li Zimu's pupils contracted sharply the moment he saw my face. I gripped my backpack, flashed a grin, and asked, "What's wrong?" Surprised. I told him I was back, but he just snorted and refused to answer. I didn't care and simply pushed my way into the crowd. The guys I stole the motorcycle from were screaming internally, "How is this calamity still alive?" The others had no idea what caused the chaos last night, but I knew exactly what happened. They didn't dare say a word, and a few of them even came to stand behind me. One whispered, "Boss, what if I follow you from now on?" Before I could even respond, the evaluation team stepped forward and announced that time was officially up. I realized I'd cut it close. If I'd overslept, my journey would have ended right there. The pimply-faced kid repeated his offer, but I told him, "This is a selection, we're all rivals." They shook their heads and asked which academy I planned on joining after this. They wanted to form a team, knowing that academies allow students to group up. I smiled and told them, "Let's pass first. I don't take teammates who are too weak." I was feeling pretty pleased with myself until the evaluation team suddenly shouted for silence. I flinched as they glared at me with pure rage. I guess I really increased their workload. They threatened us with disqualification, and I wondered how our friendship had soured so fast. The grading statistics took over half an hour to finalize. When the results finally dropped, the dark horse wasn't me, or Su Tianjiao, or He Jinji. It was a guy named Xiao Yi, and his score of 153 points caused an immediate explosion in the crowd. I looked around, but I'd never even heard of this guy before today. People were swearing in disbelief that a nobody with no family backing could dominate like that. The evaluation team ignored the noise and walked straight up to a tall, thin, dark-skinned kid. They looked him over and simply said, "Congratulations." Xiaoyi had taken the top spot in the first round by a landslide. A score of 153 points? A lot of people started grumbling immediately. Lu Baichuan looked the most crushed. He really thought he had first place in the bag. When Xiaoyi stood up, someone shouted that he was actually mute, which only made everyone more curious. This kid was on another level. He hadn't stopped hunting since he entered the rift. While others were paralyzed by fear, he was out there hunting demon beasts step by step. Most of the candidates were playing it safe, terrified of being surrounded in the city center. The kids from rich families could afford a lower rank, but for Xiao Yi, this was different. I realized that for him, this wasn't just a test. It was his one rare shot at a future. I can respect a commoner genius who works that hard. He earned that top spot. Second place was announced next, Su Changjian from the capital. He finished with 48 points. Third place went to Zhuge Seni with 45 points. Lu Baichuan's face grew darker by the second as the sun beat down on us. He only had 38 branches, which kicked him right out of the top 3. I stopped paying attention after hearing the second and third place results. I knew I had 40 branches, so I was definitely in. It was just a matter of rank. Li Ziming looked just as miserable as Lu Baichuan. His branch was a full meter shorter than mine, nowhere near my level. But then, something actually surprised me. Those 3 guys who had been following me actually made it into the top 16. They looked at me with suspicion, realizing they were now officially in the inner circle. One of them joked, "Boss, we aren't actually that much worse than you, are we?" I gave them an embarrassed smile and told them to stop calling me boss. I told them I was just an ordinary guy and to just call me Giant Ping. They took the hint immediately and started shouting, "Brother Ping." Lu Baichuan and Li Ziming watched us, their eyes burning with pure envy. I could practically hear Lu thinking, "How is this dog recruiting subordinates already?" He looked so angry his fingers were twitching, but I didn't care. The examiner stepped forward and announced that only the top 16 would stay. The rest were sent home, and I started wondering if this competition was a bit too easy. But the next day, I realized how wrong I was. The real test was just beginning. The examiner told us a beast tide was coming, and we were being sent to the front lines. "Those of you staying, step into the center," the examiner shouted. The air grew heavy as the weight of the decision settled over us. I took a deep breath and stepped forward without hesitation. I gripped my weapon, feeling the hum of my own energy. A few others followed my lead, their faces pale but determined. There was no way I was backing down now. What else did I come here for? The evaluation team wouldn't just let us die, so I joined the line with zero pressure. My 3 new followers saw me move and fell in right behind me. The examiners finally smiled, knowing this first test was purely about courage. If you're too scared to face a beast tide, you have no right to represent the 13 cities. The difficulty was ramping up, and the psychological pressure was suffocating. Then they dropped the bombshell. They had prepared demon beast cores for us. The crowd went silent, staring at the evaluation team in total shock. I was the only one looking around confused, wondering why everyone looked so grim. One of my brothers leaned in and whispered, "Brother Pinsy, we didn't come for this." He explained that nobody wanted cores with an unknown power level. Everyone was eyeing the final reward, not some risky gamble. Using a bad core could ruin your future development and require years of research to fix. That first high-level core is the foundation of everything. It's crucial. Giving us mystery cores felt like a trap, and I finally realized why they were panicking. Everyone was terrified except for me, the total rookie. They had all prepared for years, but I couldn't understand the evaluation team's game. I watched them closely, knowing they were drowning in doubt. But when you weigh your future against your life, which one actually matters more? They claimed the core was just an option, but it was enough to make anyone hesitate. I agreed with the first part of their logic, but the second part was pure garbage. Besides, who actually cares about bringing honor to their family name right now? I didn't care about the risk. If I passed, I'd just eat more and keep moving forward. I solemnly tucked the item away, hiding my true intentions. For someone like her, this was an unreachable dream, while the others just flaunted their status. I looked at them with pure contempt. Even the top geniuses didn't bother putting on a show. They were just acting like arrogant brats while the elder pointed at the screen. He noted that I seemed to have a very high quality of life for a cultivator. He was talking about my relaxed attitude in the face of danger. Junshu smiled and said I simply didn't understand the stakes since I was an outsider. The elder shook his head, having heard that I was the exception to every rule. Even after the explanation, my expression didn't flicker once. I had great mental resistance, and the elder was starting to expect big things from me. Was I stable under this kind of pressure? Not exactly. But I was definitely going to be the one walking out of that testing field alive. I'll prove myself by hunting down some demonic beasts that meet the requirements. I just need to find the right ones. The Black Eagle carried us through the air before we made a slow landing. Welcome to the Third Realm. This place was a forest of giants, filled with trees that reached for the clouds. As they blocked out the sun, I brushed my hand against a trunk and remembered a dark fact. These trees grow directly out of the corpses of the fallen. Humans and beasts alike. We kill the monsters for their cores, but their bodies are just fertilizer. Frontline soldiers have a high resistance to the rot, so they don't bother burning the remains. But back in the city, commoners can't handle it. Every stray beast must be incinerated immediately. Out here, there's nothing but ruins. The ground is littered with the bones of monsters and brothers-in-arms. Whenever possible, they try to bring the bodies back to their roots. I cleared my head, pulled out the map, and traced the path from start to finish. Phase 1 was simple: reach the waypoint and join the combat squad. But this time, the mission felt a little different. The registration process was completely unexpected. I answered the call with a sigh, knowing I couldn't lose this tracker or I'd be disqualified. I rolled my eyes at the headache of it all, but I knew there was a solution for everything. No problem is too big if you're smart enough to solve it. I set off, but after just a few steps, I had to pull back. The scent of grass was drowned out by too many demonic beasts. My nose could barely take it. This beast den certainly lives up to its name, but the excitement is building. The opportunity is here. I tighten my grip on the hilt behind my back. I feel the weight of the long sword as I shift into a draw stance. 1 step, 2 steps. Suddenly, it was like a mechanism had been triggered. Ghostly howls erupted ahead as a dozen old friends came rushing toward the gate. As they charged out, my eyes lit up with anticipation. I was practically drooling. I had 3 skills ready to go. With my palm vertical, my sense of smell increases by 30% thanks to the Iron-tail Eagle's blessing. In this blood-colored state, my power doubles, allowing me to strike down enemies from a distance even at the perfect spirit realm. Mastery is divided into 5 distinct stages: initiation, minor achievement, major achievement, and perfection. Time for the next section. Every realm is vastly different from the last. If I consume 10 Shall You Go, just how strong will I become? Jian Nen frowned, wondering if my nose and my strength could handle 10 spirit realm beasts at once. Chun Junshu sneered, telling him he was underestimating me and my hidden tricks. Once I clear this batch, they'll release 50 more, including the half-step king dog. If I can't win, I can always run, but I have no intention of holding back now. Jian Nan is speechless. He knows this bottle is worth a fortune. I'm being too reckless, but I can't help it. Facing 10 beasts at once has fueled my ego, and I smile as they close in. I treat them like little treasures and leap vertically onto a 5-meter tree. I hurl my longsword, and a second later, a deep blood-red energy condenses. I keep my grip firm and steady. I grab the hilt and swing in a massive horizontal sweep. The 3 beasts leading the charge didn't stand a chance. They were decapitated on the spot before they could even scream. Jin Nan's teachers and students start shouting like they've lost their minds. The entire crowd rushes forward to get a better look. They stare at the screen in pure shock. They can't believe it's this kid, the same one who caused all that trouble in the first round. He's only a high school senior, and he's already mastered a skill like this. No wonder I was so arrogant in the first round. I actually have the skills to back it up. Mastering a high-level skill in high school is unheard of. A feat like that usually guarantees an immediate admission ticket. But because those tickets are so limited, everyone is curious. If I'm this good, why am I even bothering to participate in this trial? Why would I even enter the fire seed competition? The moment they opened my file, the room went silent and faces flushed with shame. This kid comes from a crematorium. What were his parents thinking? It's a total disaster for him, but Jin Nen already knew the truth. Ancestor, did you already know about Giant Pain's true strength? Shin Hunchiu just gave a faint, knowing smile. After all, he is our son. Everyone in the room is absolutely stunned. I slaughtered 3 moon dogs and sold them, sending the other 7 into a frenzy. The remaining moon dogs lunged at me all at once. They spat out glowing orbs, the moon dog's ultimate skill, the lunar attack disc. I focused every ounce of my attention on their movements. I shifted my weight and dodged the lethal strike just in time. The energy blast whistled past my ear, narrow enough to shave my skin. The massive tree behind me shattered into splinters, but I didn't blink. I won't back down now, not while my spirit is burning this bright. I raised my long sword and steadied my breathing for the next round. 10 minutes later, I smirked, thinking this was no big deal. Taking on 10 moon dogs at my level was child's play. But just as I reached down to collect the corpses, my eyes nearly popped out of my head. I had just kicked a hornet's nest. 50 more moon dogs came charging out like a tidal wave. I abandoned the loot and took off at a full sprint, pushing my legs to their limit. I barely managed to stay ahead of them as we tore through the city center. I was flying down the street with a pack of hounds on my heels. It was pathetic. The command center fell silent for a moment before erupting into chaos. The officers there started laughing their heads off at the sight. I'm dying. This kid looked invincible a second ago, but now he's running like a drowned rat. They watched to see my next move, wondering if I was actually in over my head. The scouts glanced at Chen Hunxiu, who was watching me with intense curiosity. He wanted to see exactly where my potential ended. The others eventually turned back to their own screens to monitor the other candidates. They couldn't just watch me all day, so they returned to their stations. One officer stepped into a private room and placed a call. Hey, big brother. Back on the streets, I was suffering. The moon dogs were inches away, their claws grazing my back as I screamed internally. I wouldn't be struggling like this if I wasn't carrying this damn camera. I desperately wanted to duck into my secret realm to hide. The heaven-devouring secret realm was my only real sanctuary. Next time, I'm blocking the camera lens before a moon dog pounces on me. Crap, I cursed under my breath. The moment the pack closed the distance, I grabbed the nearest moon dog and shoved it into the secret realm. But I didn't expect the beast to become even more frenzied inside. It lashed out with a sudden surge of raw power. The creature's ferocity reached a whole new level. It was a cycle of endless chasing and killing within that space. I felt like a man saying a final goodbye to his own home. I just needed one opening to turn this around. I had to act as a single, focused unit. I started counterattacking, and finally, the number of moon dogs began to drop. They were falling steadily, but I was reaching my limit too. My body was screaming that it couldn't take any more. I had run dozens of miles, relying entirely on the strength in my legs. Without my body strengthening techniques, I would have been torn apart by now. I would have collapsed long ago, right when my energy reserves hit zero. Then there was the seventh one, a small moon dog with bloodshot eyes that let out a howl. A chill ran through my heart. I had spotted this particular beast a long time ago. It was the leader, and I could feel its aura. It was at least at the containment realm. I pushed myself to run even faster, not even daring to look back as the hours ticked by. Suddenly, I realized the smaller moon dogs had stopped their pursuit. That containment realm leader took a single step forward and then froze. It didn't dare to advance another inch. Its eyes locked onto something ahead. Seeing that it wasn't following me anymore, I finally let out a breath of relief. I was safe for the moment. I waited another 5 minutes, just to be sure. Then I spent 6 more minutes scrambling up the tallest tree I could find. I exhaled sharply, thinking, that damn beast is relentless, and its nose is too good. Moon dogs have a sharp sense of smell, and I didn't have any concealment powder to hide my scent. Who would have even equipped me with that kind of gear anyway? I frowned, looking around with growing irritation at my surroundings. The landmarks didn't match the map anymore. I had no idea where I'd run to. I swore under my breath, realizing I was completely lost. Just then, a terrifying roar erupted, the sound vibrating through my skull. Instinctively, I curled my body tight and pressed myself against the tree trunk. I fixed my eyes on the source of the sound and felt my heart stop. My eyes widened as I spotted 5 figures dressed in black uniforms. They were soldiers from the city community, a tiger logo stitched onto their sleeves. They were surrounding a 10-meter-tall giant beast, hitting it with long-range skills from every direction. I stood there, completely stunned. My jaw dropped as I watched the beast unleash a massive blade of wind. That's the signature move of a giant wind beast. God, it was terrifying. Then came a flame stomp, the unmistakable skill of a giant flame beast. The 5 soldiers fought with the grace and skill of the legendary cultivators I'd only heard stories about. The giant beast was agile, dodging their attacks, and causing the ground to explode where they landed. Fire erupted everywhere, only to be smothered by a sudden, sealing whirlwind. The more I watched, the more my nerves frayed, and I gripped my wrist, too afraid to even flinch. I stayed ready to escape into the heaven-devouring secret realm at any second. Even from this distance, I could feel the searing heat and the silver shockwaves of the battle. My eyes shimmered with a golden light as I watched these masters work. I wondered if I was looking at pure lava, but a second later, I realized I was wrong. The giant beast suddenly went into a frenzy. It unleashed a pressure so intense I could barely keep my footing. This definitely wasn't just lava. I thought maybe they were in the profound realm, but again, I was mistaken. As the beast resisted, the very air seemed to warp around the combatants. The soldiers didn't back down, their leader beginning to glow with a faint, deadly aura. The pressure hit me like a physical wall, and even 2 miles away, I felt trapped in a spell. It triggered something deep inside, an urge to submit, to obey, but I fought it. Beads of sweat rolled down my forehead as the air grew tighter and heavier. My bones creaked under the weight of a king's domain, and I realized I was losing my mind. A king-level expert, that's basically a god walking the earth. Most people go their entire lives without ever seeing power like this. And here it was, right in front of me, making my heart race with terrifying excitement. The leader of the soldiers frowned slightly, his focus sharpening. He cast a brief, sharp glance in my direction before turning back to the fight. Suddenly, the crushing weight on me lifted as he focused entirely on the beast. I realized then that king-level battles don't just destroy the land, they tear the world apart. I forced myself to stay put, enduring the residual shockwaves because I couldn't leave now. I had to see this through to the end. Opportunities like this are once in a lifetime. That giant beast was clearly the apex predator of its kind. Its internal core had to be at the king level as well. Otherwise, there's no way the authorities would have sent such a high-level squad. I was looking at 1 king-level master and 4 saint-level warriors. The saints kept their formation tight, circling the beast to prevent any escape. Then, in a flash of blinding light, the battle reached its violent conclusion. The beast collapsed, its life force extinguished, and the king-level master finally exhaled. He looked relieved as he began clearing the battlefield. He extracted the blood essence and the internal core, then turned around. He stared right at me and asked, "Kid, where did you come from? What are you doing here?" I wiped the sweat from my face and explained how I'd been chased here by a lunar howling dog. He laughed and said, "Damn, do you even know where you are? Your exam is in the outer circle. This is the inner circle. You're lucky the king-level beast's presence scared the others off. Otherwise, even a mouse in this place could kill you. The weakest things here are at the core formation stage." I stood there stunned. I really had been acting like a fool. I had relied too much on my heaven-devouring secret realm, thinking I could always just run away. But what if an opponent was fast enough to kill me before I could even move? Cold fear flooded my heart. "So you finally know what fear feels like," he said, his smile widening when he heard my name. "The beasts won't return for at least half a day. We have to go support the inner domain now." He handed me a map and told me to find my own way out. I looked at it. This was a real strategic map, far better than the one I had. I hesitated and asked, "Boss, if I take this, what will you use?" He scoffed. "Do you really think I need a map? Stop babbling and go." I couldn't help but admire his confidence. Subscribe for more. I took 3 steps toward the exit, but then my feet stopped. I looked back, and he seemed to see right through my thoughts. I smiled sheepishly and said, "I've never seen a king-level beast before. I want to see one." I was curious, so I stood up and started heading back toward the beast. Just standing next to that demonic beast's corpse made my breathing grow heavy. The man in black looked at me and said, "Take a look, have your fun, then get lost." He turned to his subordinate and ordered, "Suinzi, cut a claw off for this kid." Suinzi sliced off a half-meter-long claw and tossed it toward me. "If you want to live, hang this around your neck," the man said as he handed it over. "It'll keep you safe until you reach the exit." I stared at the glowing, massive claw and hung it around my neck, teeth clenched against the pressure. He held back a laugh and told me to be careful, then said, "All right, we're leaving. Make sure you're back in the outer circle within 2 hours." He leaped away with his men, leaving me alone with the giant beast. Looking at that massive corpse, I was practically drooling. I shouted after them, "Boss, what's your name?" His voice drifted back from the distance. "My surname is M.O." I realized the old principal's surname was also M.O., and his son was supposedly very successful. Could this be him? But if the son is this incredible, why isn't the father? I shook my head, unable to figure it out, and turned my focus back to the beast. I held up my camera, pretending to just be observing the night demon beast for the recording. 10 minutes later, I moved to the side, making sure I was blocking the camera lens. In a flash, I stashed the entire corpse into my heaven-devouring secret realm. My heart is pounding. This is a demonic beast. How powerful will I become after I devour this thing? It mastered wind, rain, and sun. It even used sonic waves to fight off 5 experts. They say eating this makes you incredible, and I just claimed the entire corpse. A horse doesn't get fat without night grass, and a man doesn't get rich without a windfall. I'm about to take off while others kill themselves just for a single core. I'm the only one who can use it like this, and I can feel my strength surging already. The meat will rot, but I have the claws and the essence to absorb. I don't fear the corruption of the third domain. I only take what is pure. They didn't think a kid like me could cause trouble, but they underestimated me. I wanted to stay and fight shoulder to shoulder, but I held back. It's too dangerous, and I only have 90 minutes left to get out of here. I need to sneak out and retreat using my movement techniques. I'm walking with half-meter claws dangling from my neck, dodging spikes. Looking at the map, I realize I've finally hit the dividing line. No wonder those moon dogs stopped chasing me. The signal recovers the moment I step out of the inner circle. Back at the base, Jiangnan gasps. I finally reappeared on the monitor. Shin Hunshu was scared to death when I vanished. The video feed is shaking in his hands. He broadcasts the footage to everyone, and the room falls into a dead silence. Chun Huanshu's lips curl into a slight, knowing smirk. Even without seeing the full video, the evidence is undeniable. Looking at the photos, Jiangnan slaps his forehead in disbelief. I witnessed a legendary battle and walked away with a king-level beast claw. If I forge this into a weapon, I'll never have to worry about gear again. Jiangnan can't hide his envy. A weapon made from king-level materials is priceless. I even managed to keep a bit of the hide attached to the tip of the claw. With a little craftsmanship, that hide becomes a gauntlet with god-tier defense. How could they not be jealous? Everyone in the room is turning green with envy. But I've lingered here for far too long. The sun is setting, and I need to regroup with my team immediately. If I don't make it back in time, I'll lose my qualification for the exam. I already have my entry ticket, but who doesn't want to finish at the top? This king-level core is useless for the exam, but it'll make the old director look good. He sacrificed his reputation to get me this chance. I won't embarrass him now. I made up my mind before I even got here. I'm going to be the toughest one on the field. I check the map, find the team's coordinates, and head toward the outer circle. Nearby, a three-man team is fanning themselves to cool down in the heat. Boss, why do we always get stuck with the grunt work? One of them grumbles. The dark-faced leader glares at them, and they shut their mouths instantly. The leader's gut tells him that whoever is coming won't be easy to handle. He sees the branches trembling. Someone is definitely approaching. The other two stand up immediately and draw their weapons, which turn out to be firearms. Lowy stares at the figure through his scope, squinting at the strange object he's carrying. He rubs his eyes in disbelief as a beast's roar echoes in the distance. Doesn't that thing look exactly like the finger of a demonic beast? His mouth hangs open, completely stunned by what he's seeing. Where the hell did he get a finger that massive? Lowy grits his teeth, realizing they might be in over their heads. If he actually killed that thing himself, the three of us together aren't even a warm-up for him. I can already imagine the scene of us getting absolutely demolished. I keep walking, holding that king-level beast finger like a trophy. I swing it through the air occasionally, using it to gauge the wind and energy around me. It's surprisingly useful, and it seems to be keeping other demonic beasts at bay. The path is clear until I catch the scent of people nearby. Just as I'm about to close the distance, I feel a sudden shift in the air. A cold gust of wind hits me. My instincts scream at me to move. I dive out of the way just as a hail of bullets starts raining down on my position. Someone is actually trying to snipe me with heavy firearms. My heart rate spikes instantly. This is getting way too exciting. I understood it instantly. The evaluation isn't about finding a team for help. It's about facing them as opponents. Giant pain, right? Hand over the reward cards, and I won't beat you to a pulp. I smiled coldly, thinking, hand them over and quit the competition? Not a chance. The command forces are watching me too, wondering what this kid is going to do next. I don't think he's going to. He's going to give us a real show. Stop showing off. This is serious. As soon as he finished speaking, something dropped from the sky. A high-caliber projectile. My pupils contracted as I realized. Shit, they're actually playing for keeps. I bolted toward a small tree to take cover. My brain is spinning, calculating my next move at lightning speed. 3 of them are up on the hill, and I hate them with every fiber of my being. I cursed under my breath. You bastards, don't you dare let me get a single opening. They managed to escape my initial sight, but I've got them now. The second round of fire is coming, and they have no intention of letting me keep those cards. A voice in my head whispered, I can't beat them like this. I stood paralyzed for a split second, staring them down with pure intensity. My eyes are locked on them. Do they really think I'll just quit? Impossible. I adjusted the camera, took a deep breath, and set the king-level finger bone down. Leaving it on the ground affects my performance, but I can't carry that extra weight. Storing it in the heaven-devouring secret realm is the obvious choice. But I'd be caught immediately. This hill is over 10,000 meters high. The trees around me are 10 meters tall, stretching up toward the peak. The base is safe enough, and 1 against 3 isn't a problem. The trees are 8 meters apart. I focused on the tree right in the middle. I understand the layout now. A faint smile played on my lips. My face was calm, but my heart was pounding like a drum in my chest. I just needed the courage to face the fear. This whole evaluation is being broadcast on the university's channel. The entire trap was perfectly designed. They expect me to pray for mercy and surrender. But I am Giant Pain, and I don't break easily. I exploded into a sprint, charging straight toward the line of fire. An artillery shell grazed my scalp, shattering a tree right behind me. I let out a long, sharp breath. My face was flushed with adrenaline as I pushed forward. I know this feeling well. Well done. If I have to face life or death, so be it. Shin Hunshu watched me in silence, smiling as I cleared one tree after another. Every single jump is a psychological battle. If I get hit, the worst that happens is I'm forced to withdraw from the competition. That's the absolute worst-case scenario. I could end up crippled, but the faster I run, the more alive I feel. The adrenaline is surging through me now. Anxiety has turned into pure anticipation, stinging my eyes. I licked my lips and thought, is this really me? It turns out, I actually love this feeling. This is the end of the line. I made the final leap and landed under the ridge, where the bullets couldn't reach me. The 3 OEI guys looked helpless, wiping sweat from their brows and rubbing their tired legs. I took a deep breath, cursed under my breath, and fired my grappling claws toward the ledge. I hooked the edge and pulled with everything I had. I vaulted upward, catching them completely off guard. I was ready for revenge, but I found the 3 of them just sitting on ammo crates, smoking. Their faces looked weathered as they looked at me and said, "Come on, brother." I reacted instantly and dove for cover. I tucked my head and stayed low, our movements perfectly synced as if we'd rehearsed it. I stood there, completely stunned and absolutely furious. I pointed my finger at them and screamed, Get up and fight me right now." The 3 of them just shook their heads like rattles, saying, "We can't fight you." Our highest level is only the spiritual realm. We can't compare to a genius like you. I let out a bitter, angry laugh. How could they be so shameless? I wanted to beat them senseless, but they wouldn't even defend themselves. It was like punching a pillow, and it made my blood boil. These old foxes really knew exactly how to handle someone my age. Someone nearby covered their mouth to hide a laugh. I told myself to stop overthinking. These guys were just looking out for themselves, setting their cultivation levels aside. Everything else about them was just fine. I ordered the 3 OEI guys to stand up straight and gave them 2 slaps each. Seeing their pathetic, wronged expressions, I suddenly felt like I'd gone too far. Wait, they almost killed me, and now I feel guilty for slapping them? Give me a break. Lau gave me a mischievous, knowing smile. He obediently handed over the second round of information. It was another map showing the starting point, the finish line, and one more point in between. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next video. Seeing the confusion written all over my face, Lau whispered, "This is the meeting point where you'll face the other competitors, but only one can move on." I felt even more awkward about hitting them now, so I just waved my hand in irritation and said, "Fine, I get it." The 3 of them smirked as I walked away, clutching the loot I'd taken, including that king-level finger bone. One of the OEI guys asked curiously, "Brother, what kind of demonic beast did that finger come from?" I snorted and replied, "It's king level. Have you seriously never seen one?" I left without looking back because time was running out. The jungle was bathed in starlight as I rushed through the trees. I moved quickly under the moonlight, but the sudden calm made me uneasy. It made me wonder if the danger of this wilderness was exaggerated. But then I thought about it again. Of course it wasn't. No wonder the OEI guy said I had to get out of here within 2 hours. A king-level fingerbone can't ward off threats forever. If it worked indefinitely, I'd be invincible, and there would be no point in cultivating. I could clearly feel the power level of the demonic beasts around me rising. If I didn't keep up this pace, I was going to end up in a brutal fight for my life. Finally, at the stroke of midnight, I spotted the meeting point, a dilapidated old house. But then, the sounds of a struggle reached my ears. The unmistakable echoes of a battle. Someone was fighting nearby, so I crept closer. I watched carefully and spotted a haggard figure. It was Lu Baichuan. Well, look what we have here. The guy who tried to recruit me as his lackey was being mauled by 3 sea-level demonic beasts. He was struggling to hold them off alone, so I found a tall tree to perch in. I made sure to stay out of the line of fire while I pulled out some delicious beef jerky to snack on. Seeing me enjoy a front-row seat to his misery made Lu Baichuan snap. Usually, encountering beasts during a trial is just part of the game. But he had tried to play it safe, hoping to avoid any real competition here. Instead, the moment he arrived, these 3 beasts jumped him. They were giving him a hell of a beating. He wasn't dead yet, but the humiliation was clearly worse than the physical pain. He looked like a total mess. The second he saw me sitting in that tree, eating jerky and enjoying the show, he lost it. "Damn it, don't just hit me," he yelled. "There's another one right there in the tree." I just laughed and told him, "Lu Baichuan, we have our issues, but don't try to drag me into your mess." He was fuming and screamed, "Giant pain, don't get cocky. Once I'm done here, you and I are having a duel." I just took another bite of jerky and thought, "Your luck is just as bad as your attitude. We'll see how much strength you have left after this." I heard only one person can make it out of this sector, which had me worried. He was being cautious, clearly terrified of failing. He was scared someone would steal his victory, but he ended up being the one to strike first. After wasting all that energy, he won't stand a chance against me. I'm in peak condition, and the gap between our spiritual realms isn't that wide. He got distracted for a second and took a heavy hit to the shoulder, letting out a muffled groan. This Lu Baichuan is supposed to be a major power among humanity. I figured he must have an ace up his sleeve, so I decided to be helpful. I shouted out a warning for him to watch his right side. But he's so used to dirty tricks that he assumed I was lying to him. He ignored me and took another solid blow, grunting in pain as I watched with a smirk. The guy only knows how to bully the weak, and the proctors watching the screens knew it. Even the people on my side thought I was being a bit of a bully, but this was just the appetizer. Jian Nan watched with his mouth wide open, stunned by the spectacle. Everyone's eyes were glued to the monitor as the fight intensified. Just as Lu Baichuan was about to decapitate one of the beasts, the demonic creature let out a final, desperate roar. The battlefield was turning into a wild, chaotic mess tonight, and I was right behind him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. A high-pitched, piercing shriek tore through the air. A massive black-winged eagle, 3 meters long, with an 8-meter wingspan, suddenly materialized above us. Jian Nin gasped at the sight, while that guy just laughed and said the real show was starting. Chen Henshu joined in the laughter, nodding in agreement. The real show had finally begun. The wings of that black-winged eagle swept across the mountains, conjuring a hurricane-force wind. The gale ripped through the peaks, completely interrupting the flow of the fight. Lu Baichuan's rhythm was shattered, which was a huge deal for his coach. Even I was caught off guard by the sheer intensity of this beast. I wondered what the hell was going on with this evaluation. Things were spiraling completely out of control. The evaluation team usually keeps things within our limits, but this time, something was wrong. Down below, Lu Baichuan was already buckling under the pressure. The wind lashed at him as he spun around, and small gashes began to open up. His body was covered in cuts, bleeding profusely from the wind's bite. He turned and screamed at me. Giant pain, stop just standing there. He begged me to stop watching the show because people were actually dying. I knew I couldn't just watch anymore. This evaluation had definitely been compromised. I knew I couldn't back down when things got this critical. Sure, we've had our verbal spats, but we both knew we could make it work. We were potential teammates, and I wasn't about to let him die in these mines. It was time to move, so I took a massive leap and plummeted toward him. I slammed into the ground from 5 meters up, cratering the earth as I raised my king-level finger. I screamed at him, "Chuanzi, get over here now? I'm using this to block the wind blades." Lu Baichuan stared at me in total disbelief, repeating the nickname under his breath. He clearly didn't expect me to call him something so familiar in a moment like this, but he just stood there, frozen like an idiot. I snapped at him, "Hurry up, you're losing way too much blood." The pain finally registered on his face as he looked down at his shredded skin. The bleeding was out of control, turning his entire body into a crimson mess in seconds. Covered in gore, he scrambled behind me as we both braced against the power of the finger. The second I touched it, my gut twisted. Something was wrong with this mystery, and I had to find a way to bring that eagle down fast. I realized just how dire our situation had become. One wrong move, and we were dead. But how was I supposed to fight a Rongjin-level beast? The pressure forced us back. We retreated step by step, struggling to stay upright. The eagle hadn't even landed yet, but its shadow was already swallowing us whole. That idiot's blood was already spreading everywhere. The peak of this mountain felt like the highest, most dangerous point in the world. The bird snapped its beak with terrifying force, and if my finger hadn't held it back, we would have been crushed into bloody pulps by now. The evaluation team has gone too far. Someone needs to step in, but the commander didn't respond. I called out again, but the only voice I could hear was Chun-Hu's. He whispered softly, asking if we wanted a future or our lives. He said a fire seed must make the right choice at the most critical moment. Anyone who lacks that kind of resolve doesn't deserve to be called a fire seed at all. They aren't worried about us dying because they gave us a way out. Every candidate was given a Rongjin-level demonic beast core before the competition. If you want to live, you can consume it, but doing so changes everything regarding your ranking. The third round isn't just a physical test anymore, it's a test of the human heart. The evaluation group is watching us, wondering if we'll choose our greed over our lives. The answer came sooner than expected. The Black Eagle is a creature of the night. It seemed to be playing with us, constantly applying pressure and pushing us to our absolute limits. Damn it. I looked at Lu Baichuan and yelled, "Hold this son of a bitch steady. I'll take the damn pill myself. Once I break through to the Rongjin level, I'll kill this thing. Is it just a king level pill? I don't even want it." But then, it clicked. No one ever said we weren't allowed to advance right here. The evaluation team prepared these specific internal cores to save lives, even if no one knows what attribute this core actually holds. If the pill doesn't match your system, your future path narrows, and everyone here is aiming for the king level. But I'm different. I don't depend on things like that. On the contrary, I feel like I'm actually a pretty responsible guy. I let out a laugh and told him, "Save your strength. Lure it in. Wait until I advance." With that, I tossed the Rongjin pill straight into my mouth, leaving Lu Baichuan staring with his jaw dropped. He probably thinks I'm throwing my future away, but the Lu family is only good at controlling demons. If it all goes up in smoke, I'll just start over a few years later. But why do I feel this warm surge of courage inside? He knows I can't be stopped. He desperately tried to provoke the swift Black Eagle, shouting, "Look at your grandpa." He picked up a stone and hurled it at the beast. The damage was minor, but the humiliation was absolute, and the Black Eagle flew into a rage. It lunged at him while he scrambled to retreat, looking more confused by the second. There was so much blood on the stones as he yelled, "Giant pain. Are you ready? I can't hold on. I can't hold on much longer." But in that exact moment, I snapped my eyes open. A golden light exploded from me as my perfect claw struck out, carving a new world. A line of blood sprayed from a heavy strike, and the swift Black Eagle let out a miserable shriek. The sound was piercing, and finally, its murderous attention shifted entirely to me. To be honest, even I'm shocked by this power. The Rongjin level is terrifyingly strong, and that strike barely used any of my effort. I only used a fraction of my strength, yet the swift Black Eagle looks like it's been crippled. My claw feels like a physical entity now, and the sheer volume of energy threads I control is massive. It's like 10 of my past selves combined. No wonder they say Rongjin is transcendent. So this is what it feels like to move beyond the ordinary. The beast conjures a hurricane-like tornado, the largest I've ever seen in my life. The swift Black Eagle is coming for me, and before, I would have had to run. But now, I feel like I can split the wind itself. I drew my blade. The sword, sharp as a shard of ice, made a light cut that sent blood flooding through the area. The massive tornado was sliced apart like it was nothing more than paper. It was forced in half, and as the winds collided, the surrounding trees were pulverized into dust. Lu Baichuan stands there stunned, clutching his wounds and staring at me. He's probably wondering, can Giant Pain's Rongjin level really be this powerful? Even after entering Rongjin, I'm still using the Xuangji internal force. How is this possible? It's pure explosive power and the legendary breaking force. Breaking force is a skill only a handful of people ever master after reaching Rongjin. There are no rules to follow to learn it. It all depends on raw talent or pure destiny. Even a king couldn't simply demand the power to shatter Eli with Eli, but I just entered Rongjin and pulled it off on my second move. I've mastered breaking force, surpassing 90% of my peers in an instant. Could a swan-level pill really do this? If it were a king-level pill, I can't even imagine the result. Someone sighs, thinking I'll still have a long, winding road ahead of me. Shen Juanxiu just gives a sidelong smile. Annan asks him, "What are you laughing at?" "This is our own fire seed," he says. He thinks my specialty is unique, not a waste of time. He doesn't say another word and just tosses a file folder onto the table. Everyone rushes to open it, staring at the words written on top. The blood dissolution pill. Someone catches their breath as Chun Juanxiu smiles and begins to explain. This is something that was only recently developed. It allows a person to completely dissolve the virus within them. They can purge the beast's core and swallow a brand new internal core. And they can do it without taking any damage. This was only released recently, making us the very first group to have access to it. Otherwise, the evaluation committee wouldn't have even brought it up. It wouldn't even be a question. But that's not even the most impressive part about this new system. The potential contained within the internal core being dissolved by the pill won't just disappear, it will actually stack. In simple terms, your power will increase based on your existing foundation. It builds up instead of just replacing the old core, leaving everyone in the room stunned. Many started to feel a secret pang of regret, wondering if they should have waited to advance. Someone asks, "Shun Juanxiu, do we still have a chance to use it?" Shun Juanxiu just gives a mocking smile and asks, "What chance?" This is strictly for those who have just entered the spirit fusion stage. The veterans rub their brows and beat their chests in pure frustration. They actually wish they had been born a few years later just for this. But most of them understand that every generation brings a new evolution. The system changes and better things always emerge. It's exactly because of this constant progress that humanity continues to grow stronger and stronger. Still, for those who missed out, it's a damn shame. If I had swallowed 2 king-level demon beast cores from the start, wouldn't I be even more powerful? Theoretically, it's possible, even if they're rare. Shun Juanxiu shook his head slightly, not waiting for me to finish. It's impossible for those trying to cheat the system. The rules are set in stone. Every core you consume after the first must be stronger than the last. If your first core is already king level, then every single one that follows has to top that. They would have to be higher than king level. My God, the crowd couldn't even imagine it. King level was already the top 13%. That was the absolute peak for most. Even the elite disciples from the great families had to suffer through hell to achieve it. Anything higher was unthinkable. Everyone turned their eyes toward me. They knew my group had arrived at the perfect time. The envy in the room was thick enough to choke on. After I unleashed the dragon storm, Lu Baichuan stood there frozen and speechless. I felt like I'd just picked up a new toy, and I used it to taunt the Black Prison Camp. I thought, bring another one. This feeling of total suppression is addictive. The Black Prison Camp couldn't stomach the provocation. The molten gold waste axe began to hum, showing signs of its own sentient will. It roared with fury and immediately unleashed its absolute bloodlust. But I faced it effortlessly, playing with it while looking damn good doing it. Does he really dare to envy me? Good, that's exactly what I like to see. Lu Baichuan had the stubborn face of a youth who refused to apologize. But it was obvious the gap between our powers had become an unbridgeable chasm. Shun Juanxiu decided to crank up the intensity and push the temperature to the limit. 3 more molten gold axes appeared out of thin air. The crowd stared in disbelief at the sheer scale of the trial. I wasn't looking to kill anyone today. I just wanted to test the limits of this power. It isn't every day you see a talent like this emerge. A monster like me doesn't just appear out of nowhere. I was a rare breed, and everyone in the room knew it. Giant Pain was someone they had watched grow from the very beginning. Aside from being a bit of a troublemaker, every other aspect of my skill was flawless, which is incredibly rare. In critical moments, I dared to make the hard calls and sacrifice myself for the team. That kind of loyalty is hard to find in this world, and only people with that kind of heart ever become truly important. He might just be the spark we need, Shen Juanxiu said quietly. Keep going, I won't say it twice, I muttered as 3 more molten gold axes were unleashed. I was practicing my movements when I suddenly felt something was off and pinpointed the problem. There was another enemy nearby, and I couldn't help but smile slightly at the situation. I was actually worried there wouldn't be anyone left to feed my growth. I took the initiative to attack, dancing between the 4 deadly axes. The rhythm beneath my feet was perfectly methodical. My speed was reaching extreme levels. I could even hover in midair, making everyone realize I had absorbed a speed-type inner core. But it wasn't just raw speed. I had mastered the floating wind step, watching the chaos unfold with total ease. Fighting 4 high-level axes at once, I didn't give an inch of ground. The crowd was paralyzed with shock, wondering if this was still the same Giant Pain they knew. Shun Juanxiu breathed a sigh of relief, realizing he had found a true genius in me. He had been ready to risk everything to save me if things went south, but there was no need for a rescue mission. I wasn't just resisting, I was treating this entire high-stakes evaluation like a game. My current power level had already surpassed everyone else in my rank. The trial officially ended the moment I struck down the final target. For demonic beasts lay dead at my feet. I had won, and Lu Baichuan had lost everything. It was over ahead of schedule, and Lu Baichuan looked like a dead man walking. I walked over, reached out a hand, and spoke to him. With a hint of pride, he looked at me and said, "Thank you, Giant Pain." I gave a slight smile and replied, "Don't mention it," as the crowd burst into laughter. But Lu Baichuan's laughter was forced, his eyes searching mine for answers. He wanted to know the true gap between us, a bitter pill for someone always put on a pedestal. I just chuckled to myself, having seen his type far too many times. There was no comparison. I had already entered the Rongjin stage, reaching true transcendence. He wouldn't even be able to withstand a single move from me. Rongjin and Lingjin are simply two different worlds. Besides, I could now levitate at will. It would be impossible for Lu Baichuan to even land a hit. But then, he did something completely unexpected. Lu Baichuan made a move that caught everyone off guard. It was a shocking display that almost made my jaw drop. Even the officers in the command room were left stunned. They probably wondered if the kid had finally lost his mind. Lu Baichuan pulled out the inner core issued by the evaluation group and swallowed it whole. He immediately sat down cross-legged to meditate. The last thing he said before closing his eyes was, "Giant Pain, don't worry about the spot. I won't fight you for it. But I still want to compete with you, just a little. Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll never get another chance." The sheer audacity and courage of it, I honestly thought he'd lost his mind. I snapped at him, asking if he was crazy for swallowing that pill. Back in the command room, the officers were thinking about his health and safety. They were convinced Lu Baichuan had gone completely insane. But Chen Juanxiu looked thoughtful, realizing Lu Baichuan's evaluation needed to be changed. Lu Baichuan didn't care about the risks of the blood velvet pill. He knew exactly what a move like this could do to his body. At the very least, his courage was undeniable. It was commendable, even if others just saw it as impulsive. They simply didn't understand his desperation. But Lu Baichuan himself was very clear about the reality of his situation. He was afraid, truly terrified, but not of the pill. He was afraid of losing the chance to ever stand on the same stage as me again. As a top genius from the 13 cities, he had his pride, having been praised since childhood. But after seeing how easily I broke through the barriers, he was shaken. His inner confidence had nearly collapsed, and an absurd thought took root in his heart. If he didn't fight me right now, he might never even see my shadow in the future. The gap was widening too fast for him to handle. For the first time in his life, a genius like him felt truly left behind. He felt a wave of pure panic, and that fear drove him to make such a reckless move. After a moment, Lu Baichuan's entire aura shifted as he merged with the world around him. I could feel an extraordinary power radiating from his body. Finally, I understood the difference between being close to nature and being one with it. I couldn't help but sigh as he stood up and drew his weapon. He stared at me for a long time before saying, "Come on, show me what you've got. Give me everything. Don't hold back." The air grew heavy with urgency, so I straightened my posture to match his solemnity. Seeing him so serious actually made me feel a little bit guilty. I focused on his breathing, but I quickly found myself feeling disappointed. Even in this state, he didn't seem that powerful to me, and I silently shook my head. I looked him in the eye and asked, "Are you sure you want me to give it my all?" Lu Baichuan's face was dead serious as he gave a firm nod. "I want you to treat me like a real opponent," he demanded. Back in the command room, the officers watched this insane confrontation between two youths. But the moment Lu Baichuan made his move, a collective sigh filled the room. The gap between us was simply too wide to bridge. Lu Baichuan revealed his advantage, the power and weight of the gold attribute. He unleashed his ultimate signature technique with everything he had left. I moved at the exact same time, without even needing to turn my back. I gave my fingers a slight flick, releasing the woman's poison. It surged toward Lu Baichuan. He was instantly swallowed by a blood-red mist before it dissipated into nothingness. Lu Baichuan stood there frozen, completely lost in his own thoughts. It was over, and the command center sat in a stunned, heavy silence. The gap was so massive that he couldn't even land a single effective hit on me. No matter how hard he tried, he was just a punching bag, and I hoped he wouldn't lose heart. That is the true power of the breaking staff. It's a total cheat code that shatters an opponent's momentum with a single wave of my hand. Chen Juanxiu took a shallow breath and ordered the team to bring everyone back. He told the psych ward to prepare for the fallout, but Jian Nan just looked confused. He asked if I needed counseling, and Chen Juanxiu looked at him like he was an idiot. Lu Baichuan and I left with the group, but even on the chopper, he didn't say a word. He just clutched his sword and chewed on a blade of wild grass in silence. His evaluation was done, but the others still had to finish their trials. By the next day, the Fire Seed list was released with 8 names, including Xiao and Su Tianjiao. Even the 3 juniors who wanted to follow me made the cut, but the 8th spot stayed hidden. The next step is the International Alliance battle in December, so for now, there are no missions. While the others stared at their king rank inner cores in shock, I just chewed my grass. It's just a profound rank core, so there's no reason to be depressed. There's always a way forward. Yeah, his core is actually pretty good. Li Simu grumbled, thinking they didn't know a thing about his true level. I watched him stare at that king rank core with a sinking heart, knowing he nearly died for something he can't even use. I told him to stop sulking, and he shut his mouth immediately. I was the first to put him in his place during sparring, so now the others don't dare talk back to me. Just then, Chun Hongxi arrived with his team and a police escort. He called for the fire seeds to step forward, and I saw my aunt, the evaluation leader, standing there. The rest of the group and I quickly formed a line, officially marking us as the new elite squad. We're probably the weakest class in history, and I could tell the others felt bitter about their low-rank cores. My heart skipped a beat as the tension in the room thickened. The silence was heavy, and every word spoken felt like a jab at our pride. I looked at my teammates and saw their expressions darkening by the second. Then, she clapped her hands, and an assistant brought out a sleek silver case. Inside were 8 small, classic-style bottles containing the legendary soul iron pills. The official explained that these pills could prevent permanent injury during high-level breakthroughs. The sheer efficacy of these things is staggering. I wondered to myself, do measures like this really exist? It was time to say goodbye to our old limitations. The others stared with wide eyes, but I remained focused on the prize. I asked my aunt if the 8th spot was finally settled, and she nodded with a satisfied smile. Liu Baichuan was selected, though only by a razor-thin margin. When he was told to step forward, everyone gave him a side eye. He walked out looking completely overwhelmed. His face was bright red, but clearly, he wasn't going to be an issue. It was a total blow to his ego. He couldn't even compare to the rest. And he certainly couldn't compare to me. Even Li Sima beat him, mocking him by asking if the Liu family was just filling a quota. Liu Baichuan exploded, shouting that Li Sima was out of his mind. Chun Hongxi's face darkened as he told Li Sima to watch his attitude. Li Sima snorted, knowing there was no foul play. He just wanted to annoy the guy. Now Liu Baichuan was assigned to the southern city. I interrupted to ask how to use the soul iron pill, and my aunt gave me a sharp look. She told us the pill was a reward and a guide, urging us to start training immediately. Her words made my blood boil with anticipation. I wished I could run straight to the training area and start right now. We were meant to bring glory to the 13 cities, and everyone was hungry for it. I was excited too, but as the session ended, I was pulled aside. The evaluation was over, and we were told we could study normally until December. When I heard the Academy's invitation was official, I felt a surge of genuine thrill. I came here for one reason, to master the double realm. Old director, Mom, Dad, I didn't let you down. The issue with my identity at the crematorium was finally settled. It was one less weight on my shoulders. As I was leaving, Shen Huanxiu pulled me aside for a private word. She looked me in the eye and asked a serious question while I scratched my head. The question felt like a trap, but I didn't know for sure, so I just answered. I told her my only wish in this world was to never lose my edge. She shouted that fulfilling a wish like that would be incredibly difficult. Power is one side of the coin, the people are the other. The 13 cities selection starts in a year. Do you want to represent our citizens? She wanted me to go to the southern city to compete, and I was stunned. I had only been looking out for myself. I asked if she was kidding me. I'm only in the fusion realm. Isn't that selection reserved for the top committee members? I thought she was crazy. I can barely keep myself fed, let alone compete. That stage is for the big shots. Am I even worthy of it? I had no idea how Chun Huanxiu could even come up with such an idea. She expected my shock and smiled, telling me not to doubt myself. She said Nanshan has been suppressed for too long and needs a genius to wake the world up. She asked if I was brave enough to be that genius and carry Nanshan's voice to all humanity. Her words stirred something deep inside me, but I still couldn't believe it. Auntie, where did you get the idea that I have this kind of potential? I knew Nanshan had been suppressed for years, but it wasn't intentional. It was just that no one had ever stepped up. Being marginalized was normal, but our strength and influence just didn't cut it anymore. She didn't interrupt me. Instead, she asked, do you know what Nanshan was originally called? Of course I do, I replied. Nanshan is just the common name. The official name is Lu City. She nodded with satisfaction and said, yes, Lu City, the city of the indomitable flame and the phoenix's rebirth. You don't have to answer now, she added before leaving me there, completely dazed. The impact of today was too much. It was like someone asking you out of the blue if you wanted to be president. I laughed to myself, thinking about how some actors actually pulled that off, but it felt too far away for me. Tiannin dropped me off at school, and I quietly snuck back home while my parents were out. I entered my bedroom and opened the heaven-devouring secret realm immediately. Ever since I got that king rank meat, I hadn't dared to enter the realm recklessly. I didn't know if the headquarters had a way to track me, but I couldn't hold back any longer. This secret realm was my ultimate trump card. I walked toward the mountain of king rank demon beast meat, still fresh and glistening. I couldn't help but sigh at the sight of it. A king rank beast, the kind of creature that usually hunts humanity, was now just my dinner. I opened the demon spectrum, and it suddenly erupted with a blinding light. I jumped back in shock. This had never happened before. The entry for the king rank earth-rending tiger began to glow with an intense power. I could make braised tiger heart and liver, soak the tiger's whip in wine, and fry or saute the rest. These perfect ingredients could massively upgrade my physique, but a low-level recipe would ruin them. I couldn't settle for an ordinary effect. The text on the page was flashy and demanding. It actually surprised me. Before, the entries for low-level demons were simple, but now it was listing serious culinary methods. It even listed every single necessary material. The treatment for a king rank was on a different level. But looking at the required materials gave me a massive headache. Heavenly Swanji blessings and dried rongi earth onions were things I couldn't afford, so I decided to just try a stew first. I cut off a large chunk, but I worried about the rest. Even if it hadn't spoiled yet, who knew how long it would last? As I was racking my brain, a light peeled away from the demon spectrum. The stone demon entry suddenly suggested a trade, half of the earth-rending tiger meat. In exchange, I would receive a refrigerated storage space of several square meters. It was a matter of pure utility and strength. I didn't know it could do that, but it was great. Better to lose half than let it all rot, so the choice was easy. I pointed the spectrum at the tiger meat and half of it vanished instantly, safely tucked away in magical refrigeration. The meat in the pot began to soften slowly, even without a proper recipe. The aroma was even better than the iron-tail eagle, making my mouth water as I waited to see the results. I lifted a piece, the meat melting in my mouth, and suddenly a golden halo began to decompose and recombine in my mind. The energy shifted and reformed until I finally saw the result clearly. The vision vanished the moment I opened my eyes, but I finally understood. This was the earth-rending tiger's ability, a power I had never touched before. I focused, mobilizing my breath according to the memory of those spell lines. The halo was almost there. I could feel my skin tightening as I changed. My internal airflow was circulating faster, but what was this halo actually for? The school never taught us about king-rank beasts, so I had to experiment on my own. My defense tripled instantly, a 3x boost? What a joke. Combined with my barrier-breaking ability, who in my class could even stand against me? My energy mobilization speed doubled too, like upgrading a phone's RAM for a smoother system. This skill directly raised my ceiling. It was nothing short of divine. I wondered, if one piece of meat made me this strong, what if I ate more? Then I noticed my halo was blood red, while the tiger's had been pure gold. The moment my halo flickered to life, a crack appeared on the crystal in the hidden treasure pavilion. The woman in red parted her lips slightly, watching the development. I felt full and satisfied. Even without more new skills, I wasn't disappointed at all. This was enough to sustain me, and I still had half a tiger left, including the organs. My internal capacity increased again, making my cultivation as stable as a rock. If I'm this strong with the wrong cooking method, I can't imagine what the right materials would do. I fell asleep thinking of those rare ingredients, and woke up to my mother shaking me. She hugged me, crying about how she worried for me while I hid my new status as a top-tier seed captain. I looked over at Hyunbin. I told him casually, "You aren't even paying attention. Whose son do you think I am?" The academy admission letter should arrive in a couple of days. Yao Yujing hugged me immediately, worried about the Xiannai family. But Jinban Li just stood there, looking completely confused. "Admission? You only got a grade, didn't you? Where did you get that from?" I looked them in the eye and asked, "Did I waste the admission letter in front of you? I am Jian Payne, the captain of the seed team for the 13 successes. If I don't have the qualifications for direct admission, then which student in this class does?" Their eyes went wide, and one snapped, "Are you sick? Why are you talking nonsense?" I had waited for this moment for a long time, and their reaction was pure disbelief. I kept my voice steady. "Everything I'm saying is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can just ask Aunt Sion." Jian Van Li touched my forehead and asked, "You mean Hunsu? Where would I even ask? We haven't had any contact with her in so many years." "Son, did Hunsu take care of you?" they asked, finally turning serious. They knew I wouldn't lie about something involving my mother, so I pulled out my phone. "I have her special number right here. I'll call, and you can ask her yourselves." The line connected, and a voice answered, "Hello?" I smiled bitterly and said, "Auntie, I was just telling them I became the team captain. My parents don't believe me, so I told her, give me some proof." I handed the phone to Yao Yujing, who took it and lowered her voice with a flattering smile. Watching my parents bow their heads to others because of me made me feel uneasy. If I truly succeeded, could they finally walk with their heads held high? Yao Yujing finally hung up the phone and looked at me with a complex expression. "I really can't believe it," she whispered. "You actually did it. You've really become the captain of the seed team." Jian Li looked at me too, his eyes filled with a deep longing. "I am the captain now, but they still don't show me much respect. I'll convince them in the future, but for now, I just asked, are you proud of your son?" He touched my head without asking how I did it. Everyone knows the seed squad is a meat grinder. He realized I'd reached the Rongjin rank, and he started trembling with emotion. "Your father also tried out for the selection back in the day," Mom said. "He was rejected in the first round, so seeing you succeed makes him feel complicated." I nodded, stunned for a moment, before my curiosity got the better of me. I asked if he and Aunt Hongxiu had a special history, and the atmosphere turned awkward fast. "Son, what do you want to eat?" she asked, changing the subject quickly. "You've been away so long. You must have been eating and sleeping terribly." I enjoyed the meal, and after we finished, I told her I was going to wait for Lon Lon. "I'll pick her up from school, and we'll all eat together tonight. I've already reached the Rongjin rank, so things are different now." I activated my wind step and reached the school in just 3 minutes. If I could master the levitation technique, I'd be turning heads on every street corner. But just as I was enjoying the moment, I realized I had nothing to do. I was just passing the time happily. until I was suddenly blocked. A man in a half-black, half-green uniform stood there with two grim-faced guards. I forced a smile and asked, "Uncle Me, are you out on patrol today?" I tried to look as honest and innocent as possible. "You little bastard," he growled. "You even lie to children now. Lele says you tricked her, and she hasn't stopped crying for days. This man is the head of local security and the father of my childhood friend, Lele." I immediately tried to play it cool and promised to fix it by tomorrow. "I won't let Lele cry anymore," I shouted, backing away quickly. "I'm running late. Uncle Me, I can't talk right now." I turned and bolted before he could grab me. Being this famous is a curse. I can't go anywhere without being recognized. I felt Uncle Me's eyes burning into my back as I disappeared into the crowd. Uncle Me watched me run off and cursed under his breath, "That little bastard." The two guards following him looked confused and asked, "Boss, didn't we come to investigate a troublemaker? He has such a high cultivation level. Why didn't you arrest him? He's only about 18 or 20 years old." Uncle Me smacked the guard on the head and snapped, "You see it too, so why ask? He's so young and already at the Rongjin rank. Can you imagine his future? Besides, we're practically family." He turned and walked away, leaving the guards behind. The young guard just stood there, completely stunned. Meanwhile, I arrived at the school gates feeling completely relaxed. I gave a casual wave to the school building as I approached. I nodded to the guard and walked right in. Anyone else would be questioned, but everyone here knows me. I checked the time and saw there was still a while before classes let out. I decided to head straight to the old principal's office. I lit a cigarette and started telling him about my recent grades and achievements. He took the news much better than the people at Hanbanli did, acting like it was no big deal. I realized Chunhun Shu must have already tipped him off, so I handed him a demonic beast claw to fix for me. I couldn't handle that material alone, so I left it with him and went to chat with the security guard. We talked until the final bell rang and the students started pouring out. I spotted Lon Lon walking through the doors with her weapon strapped to her back. I called out her name, and a huge smile instantly lit up her face. Seeing her that happy made all the chaos of the day feel worth it. She had been so worried, not for herself, but for my future. The look of relief on her face told me she knew I'd finally made it. She was just about to walk over to me. Suddenly, a crowd of students came bursting out into the street. Xiao Wan and the others spotted me, and their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. They shouted, "Holy crap, Brother Pinsy, you're actually back." They complained that without me, Master Bai had been focusing all his brutal energy on them. I felt a bit touched for a second, until I realized they just wanted me to be their meat shield. I put on a serious face and snapped, "Get lost, all of you." I told them, "You're looking at a future academy student. I'm done with these classes." Xiao Wan leaned in and whispered, "Brother Pinsy, you really did it?" I gave a slow, cool nod, and the whole group erupted into cheers. They swarmed me like I was some big-time celebrity. They followed me all the way out of the school grounds, buzzing with excitement. Lon Lon followed slowly behind us, a soft smile playing on her lips. Once the crowd thinned out and everyone headed home, it was just the two of us. She looked at me and asked, "Did you really awaken your power?" I grinned like an idiot and said, "Of course I did." She warned me that the academy is full of elite geniuses and told me to stay out of trouble. I didn't say anything, but I thought, just you wait until I get there. You'll see soon enough. If I don't show you my true power, I'll write my name backward. Between laughs, she suddenly asked, "By the way, Lee Simu left right after you did. You didn't run into him, did you?" She looked at me with a smile, so I just pinched my thumb and index finger together to show how close it was. She remembered the past and grumbled about my stupid grin, so I rushed to explain myself. I told her, "You're worrying about me for nothing," and then I headed off. I didn't actually eat at home. I had other things to take care of. I only told my parents I was staying there so they wouldn't worry. If you know, you know. I turned around and headed straight for Uncle John's Chinese medicine shop. As soon as I walked in, I saw John, the mixed-race doctor, checking a patient's pulse with a serious face. I don't know why, but he actually looked like he knew what he was doing. I didn't want to interrupt his work. I just paced around the side of the shop for a while. I'm not sure how much time passed before he finally handed the patient a packet of medicine. He sat down to grab a drink of water and catch his breath. He looked up at me and said, "Haven't seen you in a while, kid." Then he smirked and asked, "Did you finally do something stupid and get yourself arrested?" I snapped back, "Uncle John, what are you talking about? Do I look like that kind of person?" I told him, "I actually have something to ask you. I heard you were a top student back in the day, a star pharmacy graduate from the academy." He narrowed his eyes and reached out to pat my shoulder, saying, "Yeah, but I never actually finished my degree." To be honest, I didn't care about his credentials. It doesn't matter if you graduated or dropped out. "Uncle John, you should know about mist grass, right?" I asked tentatively, knowing mist grass was a key ingredient for braising tiger meat. Looking at the list of near-extinct materials, it was the only thing I could actually get my hands on right now. High school textbooks don't cover this kind of advanced knowledge. John's eyes flashed with genuine surprise at the mention of mist grass. "Where did a kid like you hear about something like that?" he asked. I just laughed and brushed off his question. "Don't worry about that. It sounds like you know your stuff. Just tell me where it grows and how to harvest it. Are there any special precautions I need to take?" Pharmacobotany only started becoming a thing when beast hunting began. It all started when a cultivator saw a demonic beast swallowing herbs to speed up its growth. Once that information went public, everything changed. It caused a massive stir and eventually evolved into the field of pharmacobotany. Every rare plant has a specific harvesting method. If you do it right, you preserve the maximum potency, but I didn't have access to those secrets yet. I knew one thing for sure. The academy entrance exam was less than a month away. I couldn't waste time going back to school, so I had to gather the ingredients for the braise myself. It was almost like living in a harmonious society, except without the vacations. No winter breaks, no summer breaks, just endless work after the heavy rains cleared. The exam was coming up, with only 7 days left for the results to be verified. Once the scores are out, you head off to school depending on the distance. Sometimes I really envy the students living in a normal, peaceful society. Must be nice having actual winter and summer breaks to look forward to. That's an experience I've never had since I was a little kid. I can't even imagine what it's like to just play for 2 whole months. What a refreshing thought. I hummed a tune, but Uncle John didn't seem to care about my daydreaming. He started inspecting me closely, looking me up and down from every angle. His eyes widened as he circled around me, looking completely shocked. "You, kid, you can actually cultivate?" he stammered. I was speechless. I'm practically a local celebrity around here. How is he only finding this out now? Then again, I know my fame is mostly limited to my own neighborhood. He nodded to himself and even put on his reading glasses to get a better look. Then he made a startling discovery. The chi surrounding me was incredibly dense. It didn't look like the energy of someone who had just started their journey. I stopped him before he could keep staring. I didn't want his brain to melt. My cultivation level isn't exactly a secret, but Uncle John kept muttering for me to calm down. His words hit me like a physical blow to the chest. He looked at me, trembling, and asked, "Just how old are you?" I told him to relax, but he immediately exposed the truth. You can't just see someone's rank. Usually, you only see a person's true power in the heat of a life-or-death battle. Otherwise, only someone with a much higher cultivation level can see through you. I didn't expect old John to be the one to see it, so I just told him not to overthink a genius's business. Surprisingly, he didn't argue. He just handed me an old, dusty book that made me cough the moment I touched it. I swatted the dust away, and he rolled his eyes as he told me the book held the secrets of the yew grass. "This is the book you need," he said. "Read it and bring it back to me." I looked at the tattered thing in disbelief. "You actually want this back?" He glared at me and warned, "If you dare throw that away, I'll have your head." I wiped the cover clean, revealing the faded title underneath. It was a standard textbook for the Cultivator Academy. The 3rd edition? They're already on the 9th. This thing is a relic. But I knew if I actually tossed it, he'd make me regret it. "Kid, the version might be old, but the locations and methods are solid," he grumbled. "The proper way to harvest jumble grass doesn't change with time. Some things are just timeless." I nodded, thanked him, and turned around to head out. I didn't bother asking the director for anything else. Why waste the breath? I headed straight home and hopped over the wall to get inside. I reached the first door. The main entrance was locked, and the curtains were drawn tight. I slipped through a small crack, letting in a sliver of light before. It quickly snapped shut behind me. I went straight to my room and flicked on the light. I flipped to the index to find jumble grass, abundant in stable rift spaces. Chongming City, Sector 883 recommended. Search carefully. Guardian demonic beasts will be present. Clear, concise, and easy to understand. Exactly what you'd expect from a formal textbook. I closed the book with a satisfied smile and took a moment to look it over. School is useless to me now. I need to take a trip to Chongming City and find some travel funds. The next morning, I broke the news to my mother. "Where exactly are you going for a stroll?" she asked, looking up at me. I told her I had a little brother in arms in Chongming City and I'd be staying with him. "Aren't you ashamed to be a moocher?" she asked, frowning at the thought of me eating their food. In my head, I thought, I saved his life, so what's a few free meals? My previous illness drained our savings, so I need to make money and find that cloud mist grass. I need at least 10,000 yuan. She told me the money was originally for my lifeblood medicine, but now it was a reward. She set down her bowl and handed me a thick wad of cash. I took it with mixed emotions and thanked her as she brushed her hair back with a smile. I quickly declined her offer to help pack, keeping the secret of my flying realm hidden. Traveling 800 kilometers is easy for a nascent soul cultivator, but the chaotic rifts make flying too dangerous. I had to take the Interstellar Orbital Car, the official line built by the 13 cities. The autonomous orbital drive is for commoners, but even then, I could barely afford it. The station was packed, so I used my student ID to snag a half-price ticket. I could have gone for free with my Fire Seed card, but it's just gathering dust in my inventory. I haven't achieved anything yet. How could I dare use the VIP channel? 7 hours later, I landed in Chongming City and headed straight for Rift Space number 883. I was in a hurry, but the plaza was already overflowing with people. It turns out even entering a low-risk rift requires a prior appointment. The staff member smiled and told me the earliest slot was 7 days away. I sat in the lobby, debating whether to pull out my Fire Seed card when a voice called my name. I looked up and saw Su Tianjiao standing there with her clean, short hair. She carried an imposing aura, flanked by 2 bodyguards dressed in solid black. "What a coincidence," I muttered, giving her an awkward nod. She asked why I wasn't at home and what I was doing all the way out in Chongming City. I told her I was just here to learn, but she didn't seem to buy my excuse for sitting around. I'd have to wait a whole week, making this entire trip a total waste. I gave her a bitter smile, knowing commoners like me don't get special quotas like the big families do. I was just an ordinary guy in her eyes, a nobody forced to wait outside with the rest of the crowd. But then, Su Tianjiao gestured for me to follow her. "Come in with me," she said suddenly, catching me completely off guard. Her bodyguards hesitated, insisting they needed to stay close to protect her. She just glanced at me and told them I was safer to be around than they were. I watched her bypass the entire line with a single word, feeling a surge of realization. I realized then that I didn't actually hate privilege, I just hated not having it for myself. The world felt clearer in that moment, and she didn't have to ask me twice. She asked if something was wrong, but I just shook my head and followed. I thanked her, knowing I never would have gotten inside without her help. Once we were through the gates, I prepared to head off on my own path. She told me to call her if I ever needed a favor, acting like a timely rain in a drought. I nodded, thinking I might actually need to take her up on that someday. My destination was a mountain valley several kilometers away, so I activated my floating step. I hovered 10 meters above the ground, ignoring the onlookers mocking me for showing off. They had no idea my internal core was surging with enough power to travel across the continent. After eating so much high-grade spirit food, traveling this distance felt like child's play. After 20 years of waiting, it only took a few minutes. I arrived at the valley, the greenery burning bright, but something felt off. My nose twitched. I could smell 7 or 8 demonic beasts within 500 meters. I unsheathed my sword, thinking of the cash. A single bottle of golden beast blood costs at least 100,000. I tossed a stone into the brush to lure the monsters out. A spotted leopard lunged, and my eyes lit up as I thought, "Come to Papa, little kitty." It roared in fury, sending branches flying, but I just sidestepped and prepared my strike. I thrust my blade forward with precision. It was a barrier-breaking strike, and its defensive skill began to crumble. I didn't hesitate for a second, thinking, it's my turn now, as I charged straight for its head. I shattered its guard in one movement, leaving the beast stunned and unable to react. It raised its right claw, hard as iron, but in the next second, I snapped it like a twig. Its pride turned to dust as my blade flashed, blooming like a flower and ending the struggle. The arrogant leopard was dead, and I wanted to laugh at the sky after winning in just 2 moves. Defeating an equal-level foe so easily felt like a dream, but the commotion had scared off the other beasts. I couldn't let them escape. This was all money, so I went on the offensive like a butcher on a spree. I wiped my hands and reached for my belt. I pulled out 10 empty bottles, using a secret technique passed down through my family. I hung the carcasses from a tree and pierced their hearts to collect every drop of that golden blood. The golden blood gushed out without stopping. Drip by drip, I made sure not to waste a single drop. My skills were sharp, forged through years of hardship. I had 10 carcasses skewered and hanging from the trees like giant kebabs. To an outsider, this scene would look like a nightmare. But this wasn't some standard hunting operation. It was a secret technique passed down from the crematorium line. I watched the final drop of golden blood slide into the bottle. I capped it, tucked it away, and looked at the pile of remains with a grin. The claws alone could be sold for a fortune. The iron hide was useless to me, and the empty bladders were trash. But the meat? That could sell for plenty, and I only needed enough for 1 meal. I muttered to myself as I worked, knowing I didn't have time to be neat. I just needed to store it all away before anyone saw me. If Ndao Fu saw this, he'd call me a cold-blooded monster for sure. I kept searching the area, and suddenly, something caught my eye in the brush. Half-meter-tall stalks of cloud mist grass were poking out from the weeds. I couldn't believe my luck. I had actually stumbled upon a rare find. But just as I reached for it, a rough laugh echoed through the trees. "You've got guts, kid," a voice sneered. "Trying to steal from us? This aura feels way too familiar, just like the thugs I used to deal with." I laughed with pure contempt as they told me this cloud mist grass was theirs. They warned me to step aside or face a beating I wouldn't survive. They saw me as just a student and claimed they needed to teach me how cruel society is. I let out a sigh of relief. At least these guys only wanted to rob me, not kill me. The corners of my mouth curled up as I thought, "That's very kind of you." I activated my cloud layer and float step in an instant. I whispered, "Thanks for the concern," and drew my blades. A single flash of bloody light cut through the air before they could blink. They stood there stunned, never expecting me to be this fast or this decisive. Their leader stepped forward, barking, "How much strength can a brat like this really have?" He didn't even finish his sentence before a massive boom echoed out. In a blur, he was gone, leaving his lackeys trembling in fear. "Big brother? Where did Big brother go?" one of them stammered. They looked around frantically, screaming for their leader. I watched with a cold smirk as they found him pinned against a tree trunk. His pockmarked face was buried deep in the wood, completely motionless. I told them not to move, or my boys would have to finish the job. They finally realized the situation as they stared at the human-shaped crater in the tree. They were paralyzed with shock, barely able to choke out, "Big brother, are you okay?" I bet he wished he could reach back in time and slap his own mouth shut. He thought I was just some ignorant student, but I turned out to be a different breed. The ruthless kind. "Little brother, I was wrong," Pockface stammered with a grimace. I was actually a bit baffled. I'd never seen someone surrender this fast after so much tough talk. I looked at him and asked, "Aren't you even going to try and resist?" He shook his head back and forth like a rattle. Fight back? Not a chance. We weren't even in the same league, and he knew surviving meant knowing when to fold. Of all the thugs who started out with him, he was the only one left standing. His philosophy was simple: if you can't win, surrender fast and just take the money.